All right, it's, meeting to order, it's 6 o'clock. Or sorry, the November 6th, city council meeting at 6 p.m. Do you like to take roll call?
Sure. This looks like Tom Allen is absent. And I haven't heard from him.
Okay. Everyone else is accounted for, please join me for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Consideration of the agenda, is there anything, Lila, that you can adjust? Anyone have any suggestions or deletions or to continue or anything?
A motion to approve.
Thank you,
Second.
thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. Do you have any announcements or correspondence, Lila?
Just congratulations to the mayor and Ms. Clemens for the election results.
And related to that, there were blanks for writing candidates. There are a number, if you look at the results online, it says there are writing candidates with varying numbers. We reached out to Lane County Elections. They said they will review those. They won't post that information until the December 2nd county commission meeting. They will certify the results. And then their results will be official, and then we can act on whoever they are. They will, I believe they will verify that they are registered voters in this precinct so that they're actually eligible, and that's about it. And then I think they forward that information to us. So we won't get it for a couple of weeks. And then related, there was a Lane Council of Government Mayor Roundtable on October 23rd in Eugene. The topic was abandoned RVs. It's a problem in Oregon. It's not an enormous problem for Dune City, but we've all seen them where somebody camps or lives on the side of the road in an old RV, and then sometimes they leave the RV in a pile of garbage. It's been a much bigger hit for a couple of other small towns. Depending on where they are, our most attractive locations are state parks or county parks, and so Dune City doesn't end up dealing with those, but that's an ongoing. And then I got some really good information. We had a lot of survey. This is related to our survey discussion, but there was a lot of comments about water and wastewater. And the city of Lowell, Oregon, it's similar size, or would really have a similar number of customers. Lowell has a water plant and a wastewater plant. Water plant was built some 75 years ago, so they don't pay. It's paid off, but they pay for the maintenance, which it takes a lot because it's 75 years old. But their water bill, for perspective, this is a plant that's been paid for. Their monthly bill is $43 plus water. So 0 to 5,000 gallons a month is $4.95 a thousand. So typical house, if you did no landscaping and it was just laundry, brush your teeth, take a shower, is 3,000 or so gallons a month. So it would be about $15 plus $43. It'd be about $60 for water. And the wastewater plant is $68.51 a month per customer. And they have about 500 customers, which would be about the size of Dune City. If you served everybody that was on lake water, it would be in the same general range. So when we get those questions about, water plant and wastewater plant, on top of that, you'd have to figure out how to pay for it. And,
who paid for theirs?
that's a good question. They weren't sure because it was 75 years old. So I'm betting that there was some federal money and probably a logging company back then that paid for the original. And, and they actually did a treatment plant. Their treatment's more expensive than ours would be because their water is really muddy. They get lake water with a lot of direct runoff, and he said it's chocolate milk colored sometimes when it's really raining hard. So they were really filtering out a lot of stuff, but, so anyway, for what it's worth, when people talk about that, you can quite often find federal money if you can improve water quality, and improve the condition of the lake, but there's usually a match between 20%, 50% match. So you know, that could be $5 million, could be the match for a small plant, you know, it might be a $10 million project. And then how are you gonna pay that 5 million off? And then on top of that, you know, might cost every resident another, you know, $75 to $100 a month for the water bill. So it's a substantial change, for what it's worth. But the Lowell mayor was there and, you know, he had some great information and most of this is on their website. So, and then the final item is, Boomer Wright was reelected and I sent him a congratulations message and I got back, hey, are you interested in participating in an infrastructure bill? He's already planning for the legislative session in the spring. He sent me a form today, so as part of our discussion, if there are things that come out of the survey or action items that, you know, there's some infrastructure comments about road work and that sort of thing, we should come up with a little wish list because there'll be different pots of money and he's really keen on, you know, looking out for the small towns and knows our challenge. So, you know, there's an opportunity there for, you know, park money, whatever, road money, whatever we think, we put it in categories and then, he wants something back to him on a form the state sent out in December. So we've got a few weeks to think about it and, we'll get it filled out. So that's all the announcements I have.
Do you know that Tom is here?
No.
Okay,
Too late.
sorry.
We put you down as missing, so,
Oh, you do answer.
no, we'll update it. Yeah,
Did Pam tell you that between that late?
no,
No?
she had to run home.
Well,
Sorry.
Just
She did not.
your mother, okay. Okay. We're good. We'll take that black mark off your name.
4:30
Okay, thank you.
from Benita.
All right. Next item is citizens input on items not discussed in, on the agenda tonight. Do we have any comments for things not on the agenda tonight? Anyone? Anyone?
This is one thing, Jean Jackson.
Yeah.
I just, was wondering, what was going on with the plan for the sign, or is that still in the offing, because you have a lot of stuff going on?
No, we're still looking at that.
Okay.
So, yeah, working on a follow-up to that. We got a quote for a wood sign. It was tremendously expensive. So we're rethinking that.
With the wind house, your looks cool.
Yeah.
It's too bad, we used to have a lot of nice workers who lived right here, who used to do this.
gold?
We know.
Theater.
This was. And we're Redwood.
It was about 5 by 5, so it was substantially smaller. And then we really would need two to be on both sides. Yeah, so it turned into, yeah, $7,500 plus installation of it, really. And, yeah, so anyway, he said cedar would weather well, but if you had to touch up the paint because it was colored, you know, stained and paint, like that would be a nightmare to touch up too. I mean, that would, for me, that would be too nice to put outside on a sign. That would be like, put it right here. And keep it out of the weather. So anyway, so yeah, we're working on follow-up for that. Thank you. There's Rapunzel, any other questions?
No, sir.
All right. I apologize for the informality, but we all know each other at this point. I can see the entire audience. Right. So next item is survey result discussion. We put it on the webpage. It was there at 8 a.m. the day after the council meeting. I handed out everything that I had, for you guys to review. And, I don't know where you want to start.
Sorry.
Right there.
Does he want to
Strike
use
that from
it?
the record. Yeah, you said music. Now start singing.
No, still not gonna happen.
Is this the, where the subtitles say ominous music? And now Joe has something to say.
Nope.
That's. Did anybody have anything that jumped out at them or anything they wanted to bring up?
One of the biggest takeaways for me was the public interest in accessory dwellings. Mother-in-law.
That was on my list. That was on my list. So I don't know how you guys want to do this. There's, you know, we can throw them all out there and then go through them item by item, or however you want to do that. But I had the same comment on mine, that there was, 40% thought they should be for family or non-rentals, and another 28% said for long-term rentals. So you've got about 2/3 And there's two questions related, 18 and 19. 77% said they would allow on 18, and then 19 is the breakdown. And so basically, it's 23 and 24% don't like it. So we've got about a quarter not interested, but about 3/4 thought it might have a place. And I'm glad you're here tonight, Rapunzel, because there's an item in our land use code about this. And I know a year ago, we spent a lot of time, when I was on the planning commission, a year and a half ago, a lot of time talking about what, how do you regulate it? And it really comes down to kitchens and built-in ovens and ranges and that sort of thing. And so structurally, it's a simple revision. The reality is there's not support there was very small support for short-term rentals in ADU. So it's partially a regulatory thing. How do you regulate it? I mean, we know it already probably exists out there already. But I don't think you should make laws in case people cheat. You should punish cheaters if they cheat, and everybody else if they're using it for its intended use, maybe, it's just my opinion, but I'm with you, it's on there,
Well,
that's what I noticed.
along those lines, the schedule book that I'm getting from people now is they're not gonna renew their license for short-term rentals because they're gonna figure out a way around it.
And that's on the agenda tonight too. What should be the penalty for somebody because we have 29 applicants where we had 43 that expired. They all got a postcard. We've sent it to the realtors, we've sent it to VRBO, Airbnb, all the organizations with email lists. Everybody's been notified. And yeah, that's part 2 of that. And if they want to convert it to a long-term rental, because there's definitely housing shortage around here. I mean, there's an opportunity, it's just not as lucrative, but
Yeah.
you could rent a home, there's plenty of people looking, there's very few choices.
You get back into the problem, the state has made it impossible for you to evict a bad renter.
Yeah,
And, the state of Oregon,
right, once it becomes a residence.
once they become a resident, you as an owner basically have no rights.
Mm.
And so that was what really created probably the biggest problem with the short-term rentals. Was people were like, okay, we'll just go to short-term rentals
Yeah,
because then we don't have to deal with the state laws.
yeah,
And so once that happened, then the state went even overboard and said, well, even if you put eviction on them, now we're gonna force you to pay to have them moved. And so, this is a whole
yeah,
big circle that people are like, well, you're gonna do this, so I'm gonna figure out the laws and I'm gonna figure out how to circumvent, get around
yeah,
paying you for a short-term rental and continue to do what I wanna do. So, I mean, somebody's gonna figure it out. I mean, somebody's gonna figure out how to get around it. I mean, it's just, and how do we stop that? I don't know that you do.
right,
You address it as it comes up, I guess.
right. Yeah,
But, right, that's kind of what I'm hearing as to why we're not getting
Yeah.
the response
I
back.
agree with that.
They're saying, I'm not gonna pay that fee, and I'm not gonna pay you a percentage of my date, so. They're just not gonna do it.
They may figure we're short-lived anyway.
What's that?
They may figure that we're short-lived anyway as a city. And, let's just wait for us to go out of business or just stay out of their way and they'll go away anyway.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, the challenge is the county has very similar regulations. So whether you're in Lane County or in Dune City, they expect to collect room tax and, they have a different fee structure, but
Yeah.
it's similar. You've got to pay an application fee and a license, get a, permit or a license fee and,
But enforcement's a lot different,
Yeah.
than, Eugene versus here.
right,
You can't get
way
a
up.
sheriff out here,
That
much less somebody who lets somebody sleep on the couch.
would be, code enforcement versus sheriff's office.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully we end up with more long-term rentals back in the market, but I don't foresee that really happening.
Yeah.
People are talking, well, I'll just sell the place.
Right.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Okay.
Just the comments that I've heard is all.
Yeah. Do you have any more comments on the ADUs, Chris?
No, that was just one of the things that stood out to me.
You too?
Yeah.
Anyone down here? One of the reoccurring is speeding. We were in touch with the county. I put all that info in our newsletter. And when the guy said, yeah, we usually put the feedback signs for 2 weeks, I was like, wow, it's been more than 2 weeks. And then the next day they were gone. So they lasted about 3 weeks. And, so it's kind of good news, bad news. There's a few speeders, but on average, we're pretty close to the speed limit on Clear Lake. But a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit is really uncomfortable if you're walking a dog or, you know, walking down the shoulder. We don't have a detached sidewalk or anything on Clear Lake. So, but it's clear they're not going to change it. They said it's posted correctly. You know, we did the analysis. We got all the math. I mean, I have the detailed math if you want to be a traffic engineer.
Was that 86-mile-an-hour
No,
speeder?
one
Was
person.
that on Clear Lake?
Yep.
You know, I've driven that 3 times since the, you know,
Yep.
this came up. I don't see how in the week, whatever,
They were trying hard.
anybody can get through that at mile post 3.35.
That was not a
At
big,
86 miles an hour.
I agree.
I would be happy to be driving jet.
And there was one going the other way, it's like 61.
That you might be able to do,
Yeah,
but
but,
not 86.
but the good news is it was a flyer, right? And
I wonder if it was a mistake.
it could have been a bird that it picked up, I don't know, but it's only one, that was the good news. You know, if we saw like 10% of our traffic was doing 62 miles an hour, then we got a problem.
And
We had one car going 61 miles an hour one way, everything else was, you know, like 48 miles an hour, and then we had one going 80 something the other way, which is probably,
I still find that hard to believe was.
with four of the one car, or was a motorcycle. It might have been a motorcycle.
should have been.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It could have been my Chevelle.
It doesn't pick up bicycles, I can tell you that. I pedaled as fast as I could. I was like, I'm going 16, and it didn't do anything. So I have seen those that will pick up bicycles. I've seen people run down the side of the road driving. I'm like, you're like 6'6". And so, yeah, it didn't pick me up. So it should pick up a motorcycle or an automobile. It's more believable that it was a motorcycle. It's more believable that it's motorcycle when you pull it up once and you find it in the bushes, but
That's the only thing that could stay glued to the road
maybe
on that
Or get
particular stretch.
stop fast enough at the next turn. So, but we've had some other comments about Buckskin Bob. There's other areas that are city streets that, you know, we can look into. Like, we can buy some feedback signs and move them around. We've got a resident that asked about speed bump. I think a feedback sign doesn't change the road geometry, doesn't cause accidents, doesn't mess up the drainage, and, it's cheaper. It's speed bumps are gonna be in the thousands. It's all asphalt. And then you gotta look at drainage and, you know, sometimes you gotta put them angled or put gaps in them and, you know, I hate them, but
the studies,
it's road design.
the studies that I saw and researched when I was a public works director showed that speed bumps actually create a worse problem because people come up, they speed up to them, stop, and then just take off.
Right, so you get a lot of brake noise and you get a lot of acceleration noise, and then you get the one guy that doesn't notice it and unhitches a trailer and something fly off.
They created more of a problem in an area that truly wasn't that much of a problem.
They were pretty much a no-do for our public works
Yeah.
department, yeah, because it caused street sweeping issues, it caused drainage issues, and you're right, you get to slow down and speed up zones.
Yeah.
And emergency responders hate it.
Yeah.
Because if there's a fire or something, they're in a hurry, and, you know, you put them in
Slow them down.
Yeah.
Not only that, if they got a patient in the back, then you got a problem.
Right. Yeah, it's really hard on people in ambulances. So we could look into, you know, I'm gonna get a price on a radar feedback sign, and they make them that are meant to be permanent, they make them that are meant to be portable. And they are helpful to move them around, and, usually you can set the threshold, like on Buckskin Bog, you can set it right at 25, and it starts blinking at you and does that little strobe like it pretends to take a picture of you, and that gets a lot of people's attention. Because Oregon allows, radar cameras, but it's in select areas, but not everyone knows that, so it quite often gets the attention. And the other that I saw, a number of comments, were activities. And so, you know, we used to have triathlon. But then when you look at the age data and in some of the other comments, you realize that's meant for a lot of people coming from out of town. That, you know, our core group, on the list of people that volunteered, one said he's in, a musical group that's local. There was talk about like, we could play ping pong, we could do something, like, we can use this for more than the city council, planning commission and budget committee, right? We could have game night, we could have live music night and say, you know, bring a snack. It'd be more accessible for a lot of our population, just to get folks out. We also have a lot of, single, when you combine single and, you know, our aged population, they need a place to go, you know, it's healthy to get out. So anyway, and that's basically free, right? I mean, all we have to do is turn the lights on and show up and play cards or backgammon or something. Lila and I discussed, we have very limited, between the two of us, number of card games that we know how to play. But this is a learning experience and we need volunteers. It's like, no idea. Solitaire is not much of a group activity.
It's my
I
favorite.
can do backgammon, yeah.
That's my group activity.
So,
We need a
so,
party coordinator.
yeah, well, and there were people that volunteered for that. They said, I'd love to help with an event. Somebody on council said, I'd love to help, just don't ask me to come up with it because I'm not creative.
That's me, I'm the first one. I said, dear.
Let me have it on there. Because Linda goes, how do I get in touch with them all? And I said, oh, I'm gonna collect them, I'm gonna delete all the empty lines. So I just made sure I had a name, a number, and an email. It's like, it's Melissa, what does Melissa want to do? Anything to help, but don't ask me because I'm not creative. Don't
I
say
mean, I
stuff.
have lots of ideas,
Yeah.
but it's like,
Good. I mean, that's what we need, is, you know, you
I
never know
mean, you
when
can
it's
do
gonna work.
movie night, movie in the
Right.
park, we can do it here, you know?
Right. Right,
Community potlucks
Now that it's
to
dark,
bring people.
an hour after lunch. You have movies.
I mean, you can do it on the weekends, you can
Right.
do it, you have to look at the amount of people and
Right,
the workforce and there's
Yep.
things you can do. Community swap meets, community park,
And-
you know,
considering our population, Florence has a lot of things at the event center, like, you know, planning for retirement and health, you know, the health fair.
mhm.
And we could do that here too, so you could go to either, right? But this is really close for a lot of people. And I don't expect we would draw as big a crowd as Florence does, but, you know, we need a doctor or a nurse or somebody, you know, a couple of volunteers to go over some of this stuff. I think there would be an opportunity for that. There's a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
would
get
say
people out.
reach out to Peace Health and see if
Yeah.
they're working, you know, if they're
Right.
doing a community drive in regards to blood pressure and cardiac disease
Right.
and
Right,
those types of things.
yeah,
I mean, that's our community.
right.
You know, everybody.
We could talk about health and I know it's hard to cook for one, right? So sometimes you develop bad eating habits because you don't want to cook.
Well, not only that, we can
Family.
look at things on community resources, meals for week.
Right.
We can get APD involved
Yeah.
and talk, you know, get those types of resources too.
Yeah,
Next time the, Peace Health Director comes in, I'll just mention that to him, see what he thinks.
yeah,
Just kind of pose the question, and see if it's a possible scenario. He comes in quite a bit.
okay. And I'm sure we could find somebody, if the hospital doesn't want to do it, I'm sure we could find somebody, if they want to do something like that.
Yeah.
And, so, yeah, that's a good one, those would be, yeah, that's a real community service, you know? No copays, just come and, you know, get nutrition advice, check your blood pressure, or whatever, ask questions.
I just know how difficult it is to get to see your provider nowadays.
Yep,
Call for a same day visit, yeah, we'll see you in 3 months.
I know.
Okay.
yep.
Yeah.
One thing I think we really need to kind of focus on, which I don't know how we do it, is focus on younger generation stuff.
That was it, there was a couple comments about activities for kids.
The biggest problem is we've got an aging population with a younger population that is kind of taken a foothold. And in the last 5 years, there's been so many kids born in this area And there's absolutely nothing to keep this younger generation around.
Yeah.
And the other problem is you try to get them involved. And this is a prime example. I know, my son went to a deal the other day that he was invited to. And he's 30 years old, and the next youngest person that was there next to him was 70 years old. And he's like, I'm not hanging out with 80-year-olds for 3 hours. And it's like, but there's, you know, we gotta start thinking about this younger generation, how we start keeping them around the area, because if we don't, it's just gonna be a dead area.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes for Florence as well.
Mhm.
I mean, they really
Yeah,
gotta
it's a
start,
bigger circle. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
you know, they really gotta start thinking about how they quit running people out of town. Because an older population just does nothing but die. And so the city just died. Yeah. Hey, I'm in that.
I went for a bike ride today.
I'm in that.
I survived.
One thing to do that is to have something like Grandparents' Day where you can come and adopt a grandparent for
Yeah.
so many hours. You know, adopt a kid for so many hours, just to, because it's good on both sides, you know, the psychosocial on an adult or an elderly versus the social on the child that grandparents don't live around.
Right.
You know,
That's true. I have some friends, they have like, their son's like 34. And he signed up for one of these adventure outdoor day, you know, and he said, we're meeting at Woking and going kayaking. And he said, I was the only 34-year-old. There was a bunch of 70-year-old, mostly babies. And he said, they had a great time. They went kayaking. It wasn't exactly the group I was hoping for, you know.
Yeah.
There were some single ladies. They were all double his age. So, but you're right,
Yeah.
you know.
Is there any way we could work with the Boy and Girl Scout camp, and like host maybe like Dune City Games during
Yeah,
session?
we should reach out to them, because they do,
even the Boys and
not Girl
Girls,
Scout stuff.
Correct.
even the Boys and Girls Club before,
I was gonna say the Boys and
the
Girls Club.
casino.
I have
Right.
some that works at the Boys and Girls
Okay.
Club, and I'm sure they would want would be open to some interaction.
Yeah,
I could talk to the people at Boy Scout, I know them, and see if they're have any interest in doing stuff like that.
yeah. I see the signs when they have special events, you know, they've had some for kids with medical ailments this summer, and then there was youth camp and girls camp, and
Autism
Boy Scout
camp.
camp, and yeah.
Yeah,
And so, I know they're open to other opportunities.
yeah.
I think all those had price. But then they
Well,
give you access to archery and climbing wall, and you know, there's a lot of stuff in there that's really.
It's, you know, the Boy Scout portion or the Girl Scout portion of it seems to be down in comparison to what it was years and years ago. So,
Yeah, they said that 2 to 3 weeks a year is all that they have now.
Yeah,
But the main thing is, anybody can use it, but you have to supply your own lifeguard, you have to supply your own climbing wall person to watch over it, the archer person. The people using it have to supply all of the experts to watch over the area. Mhm.
The other good thing to look at is, you know, when you go to farmers markets, they always have some type of activity for kids, or usually a senior helping build a birdhouse. Something simple for their yard. Think of what Home Depot does, they
Yeah.
have those little kits for kids.
Mhm.
It's a good way to bring the two age differences together.
Home Depot donates, like, they would potentially, because we're 65 miles from Home Depot, they might give us 20 kids and say, to do it on your own in your small town, right? They give you 20 of those orange aprons and a bunch of kids, they're pretty good about sponsoring activities, so that'd be fun. Build a birdhouse.
Mhm.
Joy gardening, how many master gardeners do we have in this town? Probably a lot.
So,
So,
Yeah. that was a possibility. And we had, what did we figure, 30 folks signed up to help with activities. And like you, like they're all over the place. Some are like, I'll do anything. Some are like, I'd rather be indoors, or, you know, I'd rather do this, or I'd rather do that. We have a laundry list. A couple are interested in planning commission. if we have upcoming vacancy. I think we have 3 names on there we're gonna give you.
No good, because we have a vacancy coming up.
That's what I heard, and there were 3 of them that identified planning commission, specifically. And, same budget committee, I sent the volunteer list, you should have got an email today. I sent the first email to the whole group and said, we'll have a need as the budget committee starts meeting again. I think we have 2 citizen members, at least, to add, we should add, so. So yeah, I mean, we did get a bunch and our newsletter's up to what? 70 some,
Yeah, I think it's exactly 70 right now.
so it went from, just basically word of mouth. 2 of us, 70 in 3 months, or this is the 4th month. So the 4th newsletter went out. So yeah, it's growing, the word's getting out. And, we're gonna cross check the 30 volunteers with the list, and they're gonna get a newsletter whether they signed up or not. But I think those are the folks that had already signed up for things, but anyway, so that going well, that helps, get the word out, so. Any other comments on survey stuff? I mean, I think our biggest would be put on some activities, because it's low cost, it's low hanging fruit, and see if we can get the public, get our residents a little more involved. And so we come up with a list and start emailing and say, look for a coordinator or a team to help with this event. And we'll go from there, see what happens. This is historically a busy time of year going into Thanksgiving, Christmas, but anyway, I didn't want
We
the,
have a Christmas wrapping party. I mean, I don't know.
or cookie exchange, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, we closed that a couple weeks ago, so I didn't want anybody thinking, well, I put my name down, I never heard from them. So we sent them, I sent them a message just to say, we got your info. One of them came back as undeliverable. And I took it right from what they typed. I didn't want to, Linda was going to try to recreate the whole list. And I said, no, they typed them all. We copied and pasted and one of them bounced back. So might have spelled their own email address wrong and changed the email. But anyway, all the rest seem to be a success. I think there's $29 contacts. So, any comments from the audience? Did you guys take a look at the survey results?
No, not completely, because I can't go online, so I know what you told me, and actually at the planning commission meeting, we'll talk about some. So I just know what I've heard, but I haven't seen an actual. list.
Okay. Did you have comments for Rapunzel?
Well, so ADU, also talked out at me.
Yeah.
Does the council want to give the planning commission any kind of instructions to look at changing our existing code? Because
Right.
existing code prohibits ADUs but allows guest houses.
Right.
Um,
Good question.
so,
I'm glad you're here.
Well, when I built my house in roughly 2016, because I'm not great at running up and down ladders anymore, they wanted the house to be all on one level. And it just didn't sit right on the lot, because the lot is sloping in some cases, but, so we built a building 45 feet away from the house that I described it to the county at that point and Dune City as being additional living space. And in that, it has a kind of a kitchen, but the only thing is you cannot have an oven. But the inspector told me you can have as many damn hot plates as you want, which I kind of got a kick out of, but anyway, so it's got like a kitchen. My office is out there. There's an upstairs loft that looks down, and there's 2 bedrooms up there. And that accommodates, it just makes the house larger, but geographically or physically, it just wouldn't work out. So that's why that building was built. And I didn't call it an ADU, just called it additional living. Lane County came out and they said, this is an ADU. And I didn't know what they meant by an ADU. The architect who drew the plans that the county approved called it an ADU. It didn't matter to me what it was called, and to this day, I use it as the office. And occasionally, if we need the extra space for bedrooms, that's how we use it. Then the other part of the building, but is all in the same building, is a shop. You know, anything and everything. It could be mechanical, it could be, manufacturing or whatever. So, you know, that's kind of come around weirdly because now we're saying, well, now we allow a guest house, but not an ADU. Is that?
And it basically comes down to the built-in plan.
Yeah, and I don't know, my plans say ADU, I didn't do that. The county did that, and the architect.
And the county is now, okay, Lane County says anywhere they'll fit in outside of an incorporated city, the county's okay and the state's okay. This was in the last couple of years, right? What, 3 years ago, the county adopted a countywide ordinance, and it's mandatory in cities greater than 10,000. Cities smaller than 10,000, you make up your own mind. So we have a choice. Florence is adjusting ordinances right now because they're at like 9,900. Florence is basically at that threshold of the state says at 10,000, you know, you're a
Yeah,
medium-sized city and you gotta allow some more stuff. So they were looking at setbacks and they've been adjusting their ordinances to allow that sort of thing.
but they're both on the same power meter,
Yep, that's.
they're both on the same water.
I have a
So-
microwave and a washer dryer in the bathroom and then basically a bedroom. Yeah, there's no oven or anything. I got
Yeah.
toaster oven.
So I don't know, it changes, I guess, periodically, but, I don't use it for rental,
No,
and don't intend to.
and that's what our ordinance says right now. If it's friends and family, you can have a guest house.
Yeah.
You can use it as a spare bedroom or whatever. So this isn't much notice, but what would the council like to do? We've got a planning commission meeting this week. We could at least alert them to take a look at that section. We had some of this discussion way back when we were in that section about what it means and what it allows and what our code said, because we had some discrepancies. We had a spot for guest house, couldn't have an oven, could have a refrigerator, could have a sink, and then we had wet bar, could have a sink and a refrigerator. And so it got, you know, like this is allowed, but this isn't allowed. So then call it a bedroom with a wet bar and you've got a kitchenette, you know, so we were trying to clarify like what's the intent. So the timing's good because this is gonna come back to council one of these days to adopt that land use code. Do you want it in there that we allow them based on feedback or we want to stick to status quo? The timing's great. I'm glad you were here.
I think it's critical too, because this was done by Dune City to myself, and I've seen them do it to people out there in the audience, contractors, people like that. And that is move the goalposts. You know, here we've got a contractor sitting there and he's got all his permits, everything's done. It's been signed off, it's been inspected. But all of a sudden, someone within Dune City decides that, you can't have this, that, or the other, and it would be a change in the rules from what the law was at the time, that it was approved, that it was inspected, that it was built, whatever. And I have seen people at Dune City, and I'm not blaming anybody here, again, try and move the goalposts. And, that doesn't work.
Well, codes change.
Codes
I
change.
got hit with
But you can't tell a person, no, you can't do that after it's already done, they paid for it. They complied with code when they built.
Well, yeah,
But if the code changes, it doesn't mean he's gotta tear it down.
no, existing
That's what I'm-
structures don't have to modify, right?
That's what I'm talking about.
And in this case, it'd be something you could add, not something you have to remove. It would basically, it would come down to oversimplification. You could have a range or a built-in,
I think people do it anyway after they're built.
I do
So
too.
to me, it's like, why don't we just make it legal? We know they're doing it anyway.
And then maybe they would get permitted and inspected too, because it gives me the heebie-jeebies to think somebody's hooked up a 230 volt electric range without an inspection. I mean, there are some talented people. There's also a lot of amateurs that burn things down. So,
Well, along those lines, I mean, I think we should allow ADUs, but, I think we also need to look at the fact that at some point, somewhere along the line, Dune City made it illegal for you to build a shop on a piece of property that did not have a dwelling unit on it. I think that's the biggest crock of hooey, that we're sitting there telling people that they can't put a shop on a piece of property that they own because there's not an actual dwelling unit there. I mean, who are we to tell an individual that they can't build something on their property? Whether it be for storage, whether it be for recreation, whether it be for whatever.
Yeah.
Just because, it doesn't have, a house. And supposedly, the reason is because we couldn't make the determination whether somebody was gonna put a house in there. Well, sure you can. You don't give them a septic permit. If they don't have a septic permit to be putting on that property, there's absolutely no way for them to put in a house or a living space. So I think that needs to be changed, in my opinion. And when that comes through, I won't vote for it if that's not changed, because I think that's taking too much control of people's properties.
That was in that big ordinance that was
Yes.
attempted last year, but I don't know if it made it through, because I
No,
thought it was ridiculous.
No, it didn't. We sent
that's
it.
part of the stuff that got kicked back that they're looking at now.
Yeah, I think everybody agreed that was ridiculous.
But, you know, I mean, I think both of them should be allowed. But, you know,
If we go with 46%, I'm looking at the results, 46% support it if it meets existing setbacks.
mhm,
They're not even changing the rules. We're just,
right.
The operating word there is existing.
well, if you've already done it, we're not gonna.
Yeah.
That's the only.
But this is for people who
Meeting
wanna build it.
existing setbacks.
Yeah.
We're not gonna, after they meet it all, then change.
Nope. We haven't proposed change
I've
names.
seen it attempted.
Well,
No, that's not what we're proposing.
Yeah.
I mean, interpretation is different probably, but, so that was a typical question. So we weren't asking for any variances or any waivers. This is if they fit. That's not that big of a problem for most of the lots because our minimum lot size is a half an acre. There are some older lots that are smaller, but basically everything that's being created right now are larger lots. Unless you're building a 6,000 square foot house, you're not building a 2,500 square foot house. There's definitely room for 1,000 square foot.
All of West Lakes are a lot smaller.
So there are areas where it would be a tough fit. But there's also higher density already in Westlake, right? You go down the other direction and it's like
No,
the houses are 600 feet apart and everybody's on an acre.
I just always like to talk about Westlake because Westlake really needs different rules than the rest of the city because it doesn't match.
Little Woking has a bunch of little lots too that potentially you gotta buy two to build a house because they got mapped and they're too small to have septic and a house on the same parcel. And they are right above the lake, so they've gotta have a functioning wastewater system. You drain right into the water, so.
So if somebody, let's say this happens,
Yeah.
somebody would like to build an ADU, they meet the existing setbacks, septic's good, all the other requirements are met, right? They just want to basically put a stove in the building that they were gonna already have.
Yep, that's what it comes down to.
That's an easy,
That's the most basic.
that's the most basic. And
Understanding.
you're recommending, or maybe recommending an exception policy for smaller lots? If you don't,
I think a lot of the lots in Westlake are too small.
Mhm.
So,
Well, it comes down to setback, right? Because the
comes
smaller
down
lots
to
have smaller
setback.
setbacks too. So if you only have a 5 foot and 10 in the back and 5 on the side, you might be able to get a little one at some of them.
Well, no, we didn't have different setbacks than our rules when we built, were the same rules they gave for the rest of Dune City for our setbacks. So, there were different setbacks for Westlake than there are for the rest of Dune City. All I'm saying is, if you go by the rules and everything, you're just talking about most of them can have, the people in Westlake,
Right.
most of them cannot due to the lot size.
Right.
I don't think there should be a differentiation. There's too many, well, I'm not this, I'm this. I think it would be too extensive and work to allow for this or a different group.
18, 19.
Yeah. Yeah, 18 was, would you support all lots if they meet setbacks? That was 46%. Only lots with at least an acre was 23%. Lots of 5 acres was 8%. So, and then I do not support is 23%. So, so there's an awful lot of the first two bullets. Any lot that meets, if there's room, if it meets setbacks, or it's a 1 acre, there's a lot of those that would fall in that. So that's basically a 2/3, 2/3 of the respondents. So there is a pretty fair support for that concept.
Well, the thing is, we want more housing because there's a lack of housing to start with. And this would, also give the opportunity for, as somebody said earlier, a mother-in-law house, or
Right.
if you have
Friends and family kind of thing.
younger children that are just barely scraping by, that need a
that's-
place to live
That's what I
outside the
think.
house.
I've got some friends and they had a trailer in front of their house for the longest time because their son and daughter came to visit, didn't have anywhere else to go, couldn't find a place.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't anything. And I was like, well, I don't wanna know how long this thing's been here, but those poor folks lived in the RV for like a year, looking for a place to live. And these are adult kids, right? These are like the 35 and 40-year-olds that they ran out of places to live and they're living in the trailer. I would rather have them in an accessory dwelling unit,
It's-
insulated walls and, and all that.
I was gonna say, that brings up, sorry, Rich, are these gonna be considered
No,
an ADU?
no.
No.
I think that's covered, right? RV is never an ADU. We already covered. You can't live in an RV. The state doesn't allow it. They're not meant for long-term occupation. So it's gotta meet the building code. It's not for travel.
So if it's a tiny home instead of an RV,
But a tiny home's different. It's built.
I know.
Right? It can be on wheels
I'm
or a
giving
single wide.
you
We allow,
examples.
we allow modular homes already.
I'm just thinking of things that might fit
Mhm.
on a lot in Westlake. A tiny home,
Right, that's what I
I'm not
said.
thinking out
A
the
very
box.
small ADU, right, something that's
Might-
12 by 12 might fit as is. It won't be huge, but there are one
They're like
bedroom.
8 by 12, something.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the internet and what's coming down the road and things like Elon Musk and,
Container homes.
Amazon and all these others that are building houses that are delivered right to your doorstep, and they just unfold.
Amazon.
Yeah, I mean, you can go right on Amazon
Actually,
and buy
lots of shipping containers.
800 square foot house.
They got right on 101 down the hill.
Yeah,
They were putting in their lines, their septic lines and electrical lines now. And they moved in, I think my husband said 4 or 5 sea trains. And they're building their house out of it. Can't see it from the road, but it's definitely there.
So, good question. Do we want to direct the planning commission just to look at it?
I say yes.
Okay, Chris?
I think yes, with some guidance, I don't want to just shoot them,
Sure.
hey, go look at this.
Well, and the planning commission's had a lot of discussion too, so they're not amateurs either. We looked at the county ordinance and what the state was trying to do, the governor had incentive to get more.
Sometimes we just give them very vague.
Yeah.
Well, and didn't we just, seems to me, a year and a half or so ago, we just changed, the model of how properties are laid out, and you can actually put a fourplex on the same type of property. So I mean, that type of stuff is actually already being allowed. Am I correct, Rapunzel?
Not in current code, it is in proposed code.
Yeah,
It's
that was
proposed.
part of that discussion.
It's part of that discussion.
Right.
Okay, so that's gonna come back up to us then.
It's kind of a low impact development, like
Yes.
all the developments in one spot, and then there's lots of space around it instead of spacing way out.
Yes.
How do you okay with the ADU, the concept?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I am, very much so, actually.
As long as they come up with something that might be doable for those people in Westlake.
Okay. Right. Hang on a second. Melissa, you okay with that?
I'm okay, I mean, it's gonna happen regardless if we want it to or not, I just wanna make sure that they're not gonna be turned into short-term rentals.
Nope, and that's right, that's part of it, it's the use, right? So this would be, if you look at what, look.
Cause it's already, I mean, it's out there,
19.
people aren't gonna file for permits to do it, they're
Yeah.
just gonna do it. So these ADUs, if we open them up. Yeah, we have a yurt, yurts don't have stoves, they have hot plates. They have microwaves.
They can.
That's what's gonna happen in ADUs, and they're gonna be opened up as short-term rentals.
So that's a different problem, right?
This is my friend, I've known them for, you know,
They can't remember their name.
Yeah.
their birthday.
This is my
Like,
niece by my second cousin.
it's gonna happen, but I mean,
Yeah,
that would be my
Well,
concern is the,
and that happens in houses and that's happening in, I mean, I've seen pictures online. We have I don't know what they described it. I looked at it and I go, you got a shop in the backyard, you put a sink and a bed in. And it's online, it's a short-term rental. And it doesn't have a kitchen, so I think it violates that part, but they're marketing it, you know, and,
When they would put anything for rent.
you good? Yeah. All right. So hang on one second. So do you have any specific questions for the council, Rapunzel? You'll have to help describe this to the planning commission as our able chair.
So Councilor Clemens said, give directions to the planning commission with guidance from the city council, so what?
For example, I would recommend that we look at implementing ADUs that meet current setback requirements.
Yeah. Right, me too.
Yes,
Right, so, right, we're not waiving anything. If somebody says I need a variance to get it, that's a whole separate process that we come to planning commission to say it's reasonable and there's a reason, or no, we recommend denial. And then, so there's already a process. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't want to recommend that we change setbacks or say we'll go to 0 lot lines and, we would allow it. We're not encouraging it. We're just saying we think it happens sometimes and there's plenty of buildings out there that the only thing that we don't
variances
say
are
that.
possible through the process.
Right, right,
So,
a separate
there's a
process, right, so this would be more just to describe the ADU is allowed, and that means it can have an oven, or built
you
in.
can't have an oven.
Yes, that's what would change, right now it can, and it would meet the county and the state's definition of an ADU, so it could be a tiny second home,
We're
but,
essentially gonna be swapping out what's in the code now that allows guest houses. Guest houses go away
Right.
when you have ADUs.
right,
So there's.
which already has
There's no
definitions out there.
nitpicking about an oven that gets put in later, that's not allowed in the beginning. You have a fully permitted ADU.
But, which doesn't make it legal for short-term rentals, that's a separate
Correct.
process. So it's for use for either long-term rental or family. So like your extended housing, you got family with you.
Yeah, but I didn't get my oven.
And you're eligible now.
And then the second part's the being able to develop the land without developing, right? Those are the two.
That
things
was
that we're
something
saying
that
that's
was
about.
discussed last time. Yeah, that's not really, but yes, when this comes back to us, if that's in there, we'll have that discussion.
Okay.
So planning commission, when they're all done, they're making a recommendation to the city council, and we get to see all these things and,
Right.
do we have a public hearing when that comes back to us, Rapunzel? Or we just have a,
Does the council have a
Yes.
public hearing? I would certainly think so.
okay. So yeah, there will be a public hearing, formal discussion and all the same, it'll be one of those, you're gonna have to go home on your own time and pour through it because it's a lot of pages.
Right.
There's a lot of deletions and some additions and, a lot of color code and stuff, so. And Mrs. Jackson, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Councilor Snow, for speaking up for, the people of Westlake, because, yeah, this community's been here for a long time. There are buildings that are over 100 years old and irregular lots.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I also wanted to address, like what Councilor Mallon said, this, the idea of being able to, like, have a microwave or make a cup of coffee. It's a lovely thing, and I don't know how I had gotten into kind of a dispute with Jamie Mills in a meeting where she was saying this absolutely is not allowed in a mother. I said, but Lane County permits mother-in-law houses, and how is it you don't? She said, we're not Lane County, we can do what we want to do. And that really bothered me because a lot of people, I mean, as you know, a lot of people are struggling nowadays, and you might have just friends or family who want to stay on your property. Maybe you don't want to share, maybe you love your mother-in-law, but you don't want to share a kitchen with her. It's nice somebody can get up and at least make themselves a cup of coffee
I agree.
in the morning. And thank you for being accommodating and talking about that, and the fact that Westlake, I think people who have been here for decades or buildings that have existed for years, maybe could be grandfathered in some way where things are a little different for them. Because we're all different in Dune City, as you say, each area of the city has different issues.
Yeah. I agree. Thank you. Any other comments on that? Planning Commission, 6 o'clock Thursday?
Tomorrow, yes.
Tomorrow? All right. I might stop in.
What?
I might stop in.
Okay, so I don't know if we would put this on, amend our agenda to put
Sure.
this
No,
discussion
that's
on
fine.
tomorrow, but,
I'll just stop by and say thank you for all your hard work.
okay, that'd be great.
All right. All right, any other comments on survey stuff? Very good discussion. If not, let's go to the Clean River proposal. So we had some discussion about a citation and an appeal and the remedies. The property owner has not moved on his remedy that I believe we always thought instead he would take care of it and pay his fine. Neither things have happened. The fine has gone to collections. Part two was, are we gonna be satisfied with the fine? Or do we feel strongly enough that we're gonna cause the remedy? So we have a proposal, they could put together one of these erosion plans, give us a cost estimate, and then we would have to get a court order to enter the property. So we would have to decide that we feel strongly enough about water quality, erosion, and protection of the lake and enforcement of the ordinance that we're gonna ask the court to grant us entry. And then we could carry this out. And then it would, and levy that fine, right? Because that property has already gone through the appeal process, and then this would be the remedy that they didn't carry out. We gave them 60 days, it's now been 260 days, I don't know, 220 days, whatever. Same individual then cut another tree after telling us that all the dead stuff was removed and it was done, and that appeal will probably be on the next meeting, the second meeting in November. He's paid his appeal fee and said he couldn't make it in October, so we would put it on the next available meeting in November. So you're probably gonna relive some of this again in 2 weeks. And I'm on vacation, so please,
Very brilliant. I can
please have a good time and let me know.
So, right.
Yep.
But, I'm going.
So, no, I got the last flight out of Eugene, so you guys are stuck. I'll be back for Thanksgiving.
My question is, what was the cost for the plan? Do you have a cost for the plan?
Well, it's hourly to put together, yeah, so it's not that simple. So they've got to be told, go ahead, and then they're gonna collect some data and say, based on the amount of waterfront, here's what I think you need to do, and I'll specify native shrubbery. Some of it's actually pretty straightforward, because it's a nice straight piece of waterfront, and they've got an approved, basically, they've got a list of native type plants they respect. And then we do a cost estimate for that and say, to get it back to what nature would look like, you'll need 51 of these and 47 of them.
I got that. It just said here, there was a part that said,
Cost estimate.
And I think it's all,
cost estimate,
what,
and I saw.
$65 an hour
Estimate, so.
No, that was
that's
$99
for the.
Yeah. Per person, with a $900 down payment, and so it's like, okay, it talks about paying the cost, but I don't see a cost.
I don't see a breakdown of cost of how many people, how many, and that was.
It's a little bit, so you're gonna go out there and,
Are they gonna cost us to make up a plan that would resemble so we can give an estimate?
they would do the plan and they would put together an estimate suitable for bidding. So they would say, here's the expected construction estimate, and then they will assist us at that dollarly rate to do the additional labor. And in theory, it's all recoupable, right? We are remedying something that's almost cited.
We're gonna take expense, like, do we know for sure? That we can do it because, like, they're even upcharging, like, cost of materials plus 18, like,
And gas.
around.
I think our ordinance just says we can remedy. So we aren't limited to you get cost plus 10%.
Yeah.
I mean, if it ended up in court and somebody said, well, 10% is customary, why'd you get 18%?
Right.
I don't, 18 doesn't sound outrageous when it's profit overhead, all the other, it's fair cost plus 18% plus the labor. It doesn't seem like an outrageous number. Or we can do nothing. You have an appeal in 2 weeks and see how that goes.
Have we asked Ross in regards to what is the likelihood we would not get right to enter property?
No,
That would be a question I'd wanna know, because if our chances are, the 75% chance that we're not gonna get that permission, then we will need to think about the cost of
That's a good
spending
right.
this.
Right, at that point, we
Because
could
that's,
just
we're gonna have to eat that,
You
that
could
cost, that
hand it
that's.
back to Mr. Clayton because he said, oh, fine, I'll call. He didn't call. Then we called and they said, we don't actually do that. And then there was another guy that said, I would never do it for that schmuck because he did this wantonly. Or he said something like that. I mean, I'm pretty crazy, but yeah. So we've at least got, that's a good question. If they said, it's 50-50, then we could just hand this to them because you're gonna see them in 2 weeks and say, you've got to promise to reach out to these people. We lined this up for you, and I mean, we'll call them and say, you gotta answer the phone, though. You gotta talk to them and take care of it.
Cause
We're in a pickle, right? You have an ordinance. It's like, you gotta enforce the ordinance and it's gonna take some additional work.
and we'd be putting in the whole bill and then charging him back, so we still may never even get that.
Correct.
Well,
Cause it goes to collections, I get that, yeah, it can go to foreclosure or whatever,
It,
but you're talking
it could
years.
be years. I think it's pretty secure considering it's probably $1 million property,
Much more than that. but
Yeah, so at the end of the day, a $15,000 lien and the government goes to the top of the pile, we're pretty secure there.
Right.
yeah, but I mean, how long are we going to collect on a lien? I mean, are we gonna collect on the lien for 40 years?
No,
Typically when you sell, right, it's not, it comes due immediately.
Yeah, but he's not gonna sell, they're gonna die in that house.
and then it's gonna
That's their forever home.
I know,
That's where he wants.
But if that's where it's
Why?
something's gonna change. That's what I'm afraid. I didn't know how to say that, but our horizon is relatively short. Yeah.
No.
That could sit there because if it goes into
It goes into probate.
an estate.
Mhm.
if it goes into an estate and it goes to the kids, then it just transfers over.
We can start foreclosure long before that. They can go to tax auction for our $15,000. They can auction off the entire property. And we get paid, and then it's up to him to pay the note to get his house back,
Yeah.
over 15 grand. So you don't have to wait for him to sell the house. And that's the first step of this is in the collection agent's hand. The first levy we did that he said he was gonna come right back and go to the window and pay. He can get paid. That has gone to collections and, is on the books. It's been worked up for their efforts and so he's gonna get another notice and probably a recorded lien. And then they can pursue that.
Realistically, all he's gotta do is come up with a plan of how he's gonna abate this and work with the city.
But he's not making any efforts.
Right,
to do
yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's, and I don't think he's going to with the comments that I hear from neighbors on Ford Way.
Mhm.
He has no intention and no one person from any said city is gonna tell him how to handle his property.
Yeah.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
He
He's got
has,
it
he has
assured.
people that
And
have,
he thinks
have-
we're a bunch of hillbillies that fell off the turnip truck.
he has a
Personally,
lot
I
of people
did.
around him telling him they
I
can't
know.
do this, they can't do this, they can't do this. And that's why my question would be to Ross is, what's the likelihood we're gonna have the ability to
I think
enter?
it's pretty good, but you're right. That's a question for him.
So that's what we're.
And how expensive is it?
Right.
Because there's a filing fee, but I don't think this goes to a judge or a judge pro tem or something. It's probably an attorney that volunteers to review these. And they go, well, that's pretty strong. You gave the guy 6 months and 27 opportunities. I mean, we have correspondence. Like he's been emailed and called and letters and we have copies, right? So we're prepared for that. That's when I asked Ross, he goes, how strong is the record? I go, everything has been right. We had a hearing. We wrote everything down. We read the script. He's like, that's pretty strong. And what did he say? He said, okay, I'll take care of it and I'll come
But
back and
there's
pay up the
always
window.
that one
then
judge or mediator or whatever you wanna do is like, no, it's his property.
Well, why do we need that order on the property? Because we've already entered,
Enter to do
we've already entered it and took action without the court order.
Probably had permission.
Well, I asked if we could remedy, right? So you can, if you believe there's an emergency or, you know, the neighbor heard saws and was worried. But he was also friendly. He said, sure, come on. But if we go back and say, okay, today we're gonna come with
Right.
2 dump truck loads of plants and rocks and replant them and send you the bills.
Right.
I mean, we can't provide that, but he might say, sure, go knock stuff out. And he might say, no, get off my land. And then you need the order.
And then,
So yeah, we have to ask for permission. If he says no, then you gotta.
and then these guys will create
Administrative order.
the design basically and all that. But everything from the high water point, basically, so all of that, like fire pit and all that lawn, that all has to get ripped out.
Not
Correct.
necessarily. No. Doesn't all have to get ripped out, but there's gotta be some restoration of all the plants and stuff there that would slow the water down and keep the erosion protection. So, this is really the stuff that's right along the riparian stuff. This would be the
Good
plants.
point, though, with the new FEMA that's coming out and the requirements that they're talking about, how is that going to play into what restoration that
If
we're
it's
going
done
to?
first, it's done. Otherwise, yes, the rules could change, and he's in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
Because he potentially needs to restore double what he disturbed. His frontage plus the equivalent amount somewhere else, and if you can't find it in that same body of water, it's like 4 times the amount. So yeah, that one becomes really difficult.
That's the one that's locked up in litigation or gonna be locked up in
Potentially,
litigation.
yes.
Because it's not.
I don't think there's a suit yet, but the deadline
want
has
to
got,
go.
right, we're coming up to the wire yet, and I'm sure there's gonna be an injunction. or
We,
something.
we hope that that's gonna get locked up in litigation, because that's a huge land grab that feds are trying to do
Well-
right there.
I asked the chair of the committee, who's another mayor, I said, what if, I said, our council was not interested. I go, what if we just don't approve anything? He goes, well, that's sort of a choice, but it's not a very good choice. Depending on, and Pam and I weren't sure, how many properties have flood insurance or need flood insurance. If they've got a mortgage, they probably need flood insurance, right? And he said, it's 2 parts. The first is the flood insurance program, and this is for participating communities in the flood insurance rating program. The first is they potentially can't buy it. So they're in a pickle. Your mortgage company says you have to, they're like, you know, we could call your loan, whatever, you know, come up with the other $399,000 and do what you want. Part 2 is if you ever had a flooding disaster, FEMA always says, we don't have to do anything. I said, that's a pile of crap. They've said that for the last 50 years, and they've never not shown up. All of New Orleans is in the flood plain.
Right.
Nobody was buying flood insurance. They spent like $8 billion there. So, I don't buy that. I did flood control for 30 years. FEMA always shows up.
FEMA shows up, but they don't necessarily always help. We're facing
a lot
that
of times
problem, we're facing that problem with our sprinkler
government
house in
security
California.
But yeah, sometimes it's painful.
It's, we're gonna help you get stabilized, but you're still gonna have to try and take out a
Oh,
loan
and it comes with a line.
to, with, you know, exactly. So it's not,
Oh, yeah.
FEMA's not a save all.
No, I know. So,
So,
yeah, so part of me was like, I'd rather wing it, but I can't make that decision for people that have flood insurance. And Pam and I don't know how many people, there'd have to be some additional research to figure out how many residents, you know, how many of these structures have flood insurance, because they will probably be directly affected. They'd be looking to the private market and paying a lot more, because it'll always be available.
Right.
or
You
maybe
wouldn't be
get
in
out of
flood
the
insurance.
floodplain.
But the new program, you can't do it with fill or anything. So they're kind of stuck. But they are what they are. They don't have to move the house if the new ordinance is just no new construction.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and this very thing is part of the reason they're using it. It's about endangered species and silt and water quality. They're using that sort of as the front to accelerate the public review process. Even though they did it generically, they didn't identify any species they were trying to rescue, and they applied it to every water course within 12 miles of the coast.
Some science.
No, it doesn't make any sense, which is why they're gonna get an injunction, because they're not following all the rules. But it may delay it a year, it may delay it 7, you know.
Right.
This council may never have to talk about it. I mean, I've seen those things get tied up for
Didn't they, so
years.
Rapunzel and I watched, Planners Networking meeting today. Didn't they talk about salmon and Wales, wasn't that their reasoning for it?
Killer whales is one area, which we have none around
Right.
here, and then salmon whales, which is why we have fish screens.
Right.
But they're not endangered, but they are protected. So, but they haven't shown that they're all dying because of this. That's the step they're skipping. They're just saying, fish, any development, we're just gonna presume it's bad. Change all the rules.
Right.
That's not how they normally, roll these things out, so.
And so how do citizens know about this proposed, should we do like a PSA or that just?
It's invisible, yeah. Well, no.
Because aren't we obligated to almost?
No, we're not obligated to do anything. I mean,
But
we have stuff we can share. We've got these little newsletters, these little snippets and
Yeah.
the social media.
Right there from FEMA.
Yeah, well,
Well, the last time that this came around, which was about 5 or 6 years ago, FEMA actually sent out letters to everybody that had properties that were within
they're
floodplains
affected, yeah.
that were affected. And basically at the time, it really didn't change anything from the existing as to what it was.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
And this one is for, on the surface, future development, but then it gets into potentially maintenance. You've got a problem, you got a soggy area around your house and you can't add fill and you can't fill the, retaining wall. And they said, and they give examples, you could change your light bulbs and your air filters on your furnace. And then one of the mayors goes, what if your furnace is ground mounted and it's in a wet area, you can't put a furnace back there.
yeah,
You've got to redo your entire heating system potentially.
yeah.
Yeah, and, he's taking a pretty, the sky has fallen view of it, but he's potentially right.
Well, this
Now, who's enforcing that? I don't know. We're gonna say a like for like swap out, and the furnace guy came in and pulled a commitment, like, oh. I can't, I'm going out there saying, let's find the flood map and the high water mark, and then you need to restore 16 square feet times 4 somewhere else. I mean, I don't see us ever being in a spot that we're capable of doing that, so. But, I mean, the easy answer for this is, you guys see it, wait till you have this appeal part 2, and see if you can make any sense of it.
Well, I'd like to at least hear back from Ross, his
And we
thoughts.
can ask that question between now and then too, and say, what's our
Because of the factor, I mean,
Yeah.
in my opinion, in my decision, if there's a significant amount of probability that we will not be able to,
Yeah,
then
then why proceed?
then why proceed?
Right.
Which makes us look like fools.
And it's just-
Proceeding so far and make some fines and whatnots and.
We may be at a point of no return.
At the appeals, when we say that's still outstanding and now you disturb yet another viable tree, here's the person that can do it. I mean, we did all the legwork, which definitely cost us. I mean, there's a lot of phone calls and emails, but
But we couldn't even.
So
in 2 weeks, you can come back and go, there's the person and there's the price rate.
I think it's beyond that.
Then you just put the daily fines on there and tell the fine stack up to the point that you just foreclose.
Yeah, but we've cut the fines at a certain limit. Like, we've done a lot of action already. We just gotta.
Well, right now it's 500 a day, right?
But we-
Well, I capped it at 15.
Right.
So it's at 15,000. I've already billed him for that.
And have you got any payment on that?
No,
Yeah, but that's what he's appealing. No, he's not gonna pay that. He's coming to appeal.
that's the
But,
appeal.
but that's the thing,
And last time we
it's
lowered,
appeal.
this time I kind of doubt it will go that way. That's just my gut.
He can't keep appealing. He gets.
No,
gets one
this
shot.
is the appeal.
I
of the
know, but
second.
it's just, it's gonna be something else every time. Hardship,
He'll say something, but he
You know.
doesn't prove that up, so it can go right off to collections immediately because it's gotten home notice and sufficient time has passed. He's had the opportunity, he's gotten it in writing.
yeah, if I'm not mistaken, we talked to him when he was here.
Yeah.
And that's where we had the, oh, okay, I'll be right there and I'll pay it, I'll pull out my checkbook right now, and write the check and.
Yeah.
We're standing here today with nothing that happened.
Yes. The thankless job.
Well, I'm not asking for thanks, I just want people to protect
I
their
know what
waterways.
you mean. Me too.
I mean,
And that's why we have this, like. So we don't have to make the decision tonight. We've had the discussion and we're prepared to move, right? So if this all goes according to plan, he will be here in 2 weeks for his appeal. And then he says, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And say, it's on the record, and here's who will do it. Okay, I'll call them.
with the time.
And we've been talking about, yeah, part B is, because then we are going to lien your property for this amount and go to foreclosure to collect, and it's gonna be, you know, you potentially go to tax office. Where the minimum bid is paying us off, and you can,
So if we give him this information, how long do we give him to contact and get it done?
7 days.
Well, we're gonna be able to make that, because.
This is ready to go.
And this
These
is
people are
ready.
ready.
Yeah.
Last time it was, we'll give you 30 days to get a plan, and it didn't happen. And you said, I don't want staff, I want them to come back here. He did 60 days. He's like, oh, they didn't go back. And then when we called the guy that's working up here on the river, he's like, yeah, I wouldn't do any work for that guy. He damn sure was, right. So these folks are willing to do it. Yeah, you could tell them, you got 5 days.
I think my thing is Ross's statement of how lucky we will be to enter. And based on that, if it's, you know, where we're not gonna have it, well, really, huh? Are we gonna get that one judge that just says, no, you're not doing it? I'm for it.
Okay.
I mean, I think we've given him ample time.
I agree.
Well, I'm
And then he's continued to,
I'm concerned we've already shot ourselves in the foot. We have enabled this guy. No, I think so.
We've never agreed to anything he's done.
He senses it. He,
Well,
The
first, the
perception
first
is
one's
one
gone to
we just
collections.
like that.
The first one's gone to collections. I think his tune's gonna change when somebody records a note.
We need to play.
And he gets the
hardball.
recorder info that goes, oh, they just recorded $5,000 lien.
I think if we don't proceed, I mean, what are the costs gonna be? I mean, then at that point, we're gonna be a laughing stock. But I think there's a little bit of reassurance from the law side that says, yeah, you have a really good, you know, the file is stacked and ready to go.
That's why when I,
And the judge is gonna like, yeah, you have it right, I'm gonna pull the cord and say, let's go.
well, I think we'll have those answers in 2 weeks, right? We'll know how strongly Ross feels about it, and then we'll see what Mr. Blakeman says in his second appeal. All right. Very good. So that will just be continued to a later date. And then, new business, we had part of this discussion when we went through the short-term rental rates. We put the number, if we want to cap it, number to be determined. At this point, all the dates have come and gone. All the expiration notices went out. Everybody got a postcard, everybody had an opportunity. We went from 43 licensed STRs to 29 applications being finalized. We haven't gotten any in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, since, yeah.
The last ones were our last meeting, literally that day. Pam told me 26, and then by that night we had 29, but, so we're at 29. So, if we want to pick a number, it needs to be 29 or greater. And we can plug it in the ordinance, as the follow-up. And,
Wasn't the standard somewhere at 5% of the?
well, the state said at 5% it's a weird quote. At 5%, it starts affecting your housing stock. So they didn't say it was good or bad, but they said 5% is basically in their study. So they didn't say don't go above or below. They just said around 5% it starts making a mark, I guess.
So that was like 48-ish.
It was like 40.
We had somewhere in the
At one time, we
700.
had 5%, then we had 4%, and then we
Yeah.
had 40, and
Yeah.
we've had a
So-
few different things.
There's about 700 dwelling units, right? So they're
So that's
Yeah,
35.
yeah, it's a very.
right, and so we were at 43, so we're a little over. So if we just want to say we're taking the state's lead, 5% is the number, it's 35. That would leave room for 6 if somebody's buying or selling right now and they want to show up and go, oh, I thought there was permits available. It leaves a couple. When you get to 35, there's some other communities on the coast. They are at their max. And if you show up today, they go, should have done your homework. There are no STR permits unless somebody changes back to long-term rental or owner occupied or burns down or whatever.
But, there's some development, we approved that one development. So that goes in, that increases the houses, so it's always gonna increase as we grow.
No. For our discussion, we could say 5%. The ordinance has a number, a hard number.
Okay.
It doesn't say 5%. That was the state's guidance.
We decided we didn't want to do.
Right, so we'll
a
leave it at that.
So you get to pick. If you say 35 right now, and when we hit 750 that we calculate, that's for future meeting,
Right.
right? You can make that suggestion, so it might not be. This probably won't be in the 2 weeks or 2 months. But yeah, so you could plug in there, it's 35 or it's 36 or whatever it is. We took 5%, rounded up one, I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
But when you hit 36, you could just say no.
And then we have
You
to
need to-
decide, if you want to do a wait list or, you
Right.
know.
Do you take their money and do all the background checks and whatever the checks as a wait list and say if somebody doesn't renew, because now they're annual renewals as well.
Right.
So if somebody chooses to not renew, now there's a spot.
But where do the numbers put us, if we're down that much?
Yeah.
As far as, we're not gonna be able to afford to hire somebody to keep track of all this.
Yeah,
So-
40 was the number I was using, so
Yeah,
35.
but 40 was like, it came up with, it was a lot of money. So right now it's $500 application, which in theory is spent by Pam and, you know, her office staff. And then $1,000 for your short-term rental license. And then 5% of gross revenue.
Yeah.
So 29 is $29,000 plus 5%. So it's enough for a part-time employee. And I think that's for us to manage. If we say it's gonna be about 10 hours a week, because there's only 29 with a permit, you know, yeah, it's something we gotta manage, right? But yeah, so we're probably working with 35 to 40. Well, no, last year, just room tax alone was 24,000. So if all the rentals continue to report, say there's 20,000 in room tax and 29,000 in permit fees, you're still at 49 grand. We can get a part-time employee easily. So I think, and if the workload goes up, potentially from illegal rentals, that's on here too. We need to talk about what's the fine. You don't want to encourage anybody to not get a permit. You know, if you make it a $50 fine, it's cheaper to get fined.
Yeah.
But if you make it $1,000 fine, you know, the same as the permit fee, then you don't save anything by cheating. So this is,
Yeah, I'm thinking for
so,
compliance. You need 54,000.
Both of you generate. So, we're on our side meeting. So no, 30, even at 30, we're still really good to go.
yeah, I think it's a manageable amount of money.
But we know it's gonna be 35 because we already, well, no, we only have 29.
Yeah, we're
I
29.
mean, why have open spots in a drastic amount? I mean, we already have people saying they're not gonna do it. If they wanted to do it, they would have had in
Yeah.
since almost 30 days now. And
My only-
29 is probably where we're gonna end up.
Yeah, my concern is, I know there's a couple of properties like on Buckskin Bob that are for sale. There are a number of properties that, I think a couple more will show up over time, but yeah, no, that's for part of the discussion, right? What, like, we could cap it at 29, and then what's the mechanism if someone comes in and says, I want to plead my case? You know, I just bought, I wasn't here for all this discussion, what can I do? Is there room to adjust, or is it a hard no? If it's a hard no, I'd round up a couple.
Yeah, I think it's gotta be a static number.
Because we're still less than it used to be, right? We heard from the public, in some places there's too many, but, so we went from 43 plus the ones that didn't require a permit. And we're at 29. So the number went down. So in theory, the number of problems went down.
Got a question, the one right here on the corner of the Wellbeings by the drift and Airbnb, have they pulled a permit? Right on Highway 101,
I'm not sure, but I can look into it.
they have a nice sign out there, it says, and Airbnb on street parking.
Oh, yeah, the one that's on 101? I think you're outside the city limits.
How can they be outside the city limits, because that's before me.
Well, if you look at the map, though, it goes across the street, goes back, we got to double check.
Maybe if you look at that, I mean,
Because there are some properties.
that's
that are
true,
in
because
there,
yeah,
some
our
properties that are
property is county.
Yeah, so a lot of the frontage on 101 in the county, there are some pieces that are in Dune City, but not all of it. Somebody had a question about Stumpy, and I said, well, it's technically out of state limits. That corners, you know, those two corners, that's county.
Rural.
We start like 300 feet back, city starts 300 feet back, so Stumpy's not a resident. He's a neighbor. Well, somebody was gonna write in Stumpy for council, and I said, he's not a resident. I'm not gonna argue about that, he's also a tree stump, but he's technically
Someone
not.
just tried to take him out, so I don't know.
And I don't believe he's a registered voter either, so, no stranger things have happened. That's why my cat's name is Homer Joseph McGuire.
So I think a staff number like at 35, the problem.
That's what I,
Instead of I was a little
a
wiggle.
little wiggle room, but it's noticeably less than it was.
Right.
And we have a reason for that, right? That is right at what the state said was sort of the number they studied. I think if you read between the lines, they were recommending don't go above that because it gets into, your housing stuff, right? Where you can't find.
So what's 5%?
35, yeah, call it 35.
I would say that we go with 35 and just leave it there.
I think Coos Bay had one of the first moratoriums because they said they started popping up everywhere. And we also had all these service jobs related, restaurants and bars and gas stations, and no one could find a place to live. So they immediately put a moratorium and they did their own little study. And yeah, they came up with a number and said, whatever it is, 75 is our number. And then they started permitting them again. When they got to the number, they quit. So, yeah, it's been tested by the court. There's a couple communities that do it. I think Newport, Lincoln City, Goose Bay, or North Bend, they all have a number. And they've been in place for at least a year or two. So that, I think 35 is reasonable because we had that discussion in our meetings previously that, 5% puts us at about 35. Doesn't cut anybody out that we know right now. It's not meant to be malicious. Leaves a little room in there for growth if it happens.
So if we get to 36, are we gonna have a wait list and do the,
I think that's up to staff. Like, if it's an annual thing, you need to ask them that too, because they have to pay $500 and fill out all the forms to have a spot on the wait list, and it's non-refundable, right?
Right.
We're gonna do all our stuff, make sure they have water rights and, and legal ownership and all that. Because if they fail any of those, they don't go on to get permit either. We found a number of homes that didn't have septic or water, they didn't have things in their name, and they had to apply for a water right or something. So that's helped, but I would leave that to staff. If you have one and you think it's manageable, knock yourself out, but there's no guarantees and there's no refunds. At least in my opinion. I mean, we never, other than our one owner operator that mentioned the refund, it's never been part of our discussion. It's a one-way street, right? You're committing to this process and we expend staff resources and spend that money.
Well, that's what that $500 is for, to cover all the staff.
Exactly, covers the staff number.
Then the wait list terminates on 12/31.
Well, it would be, the original renewals were all July 1. Yes, and then because of the timing now, they will expire on different days once they all get permitted. But yeah, they're all basically middle of the summer, which is really an odd time for summer rentals to expire, but that's how it
Right.
started. So
But even if you're on the wait list, there's gotta be an expiration, or is that gonna be a running wait list? Because then, like, everyone's up for renewal.
right,
Do they get priority renewal, or does the wait list people
no,
jump in?
renewal is renewal, right? So if you keep everything current, it's just the renewal. You have that 30-day window to get your stuff in.
Right.
Then if they don't,
Then
Then they drop.
then it'd be like, I already got somebody pre-approved, pay $1,000.
I think that everybody needs to be put to one specific date to start versus
They were when we
a
started.
variable.
They were July 1.
But now you're saying that there are multiple that are all kind of
Yeah,
spread out.
because they're
That's
waiting.
gonna be too difficult on them.
Well, they're only spread out over about 40 days right now, because we're waiting on like the county to redo their septic and send us stuff back, and then they become permitted. So,
most of them have not.
so it's not that big of a window, but that's for staff. If it's manageable.
How is that manageable? Is it manageable?
Because it's spreading the workload out to Pam too, so she's.
No, I just don't want
Process the
to,
best she got them.
like, we don't know if A or B or C or D or, all of those. I think that would be a little bit.
Well, we got the list, right? So if somebody says, what's the wait list look like? You gotta get the first 7 of them expire on July 10th, and then there's 3 more, and there's 2 more. It's for them to decide, like, is this worth my $500?
For sure.
And you could say, you go on the wait list from whatever date it is until the next round of expirations.
I think we need
It either
to,
comes up and you take it, because it's not a lifetime, like you can't come 7 years later and go, I already put my in the books. It's like, you guys will re-verify a few things.
we need to ink all this out too, so they sign a terms and condition sheet, because I could see people going,
Yeah.
I was never told.
Nobody told me that.
So we just have a TC.
They'll still say that.
Well, right, but we gotta sign TC, then
Sure.
it's kind of hard to
Okay.
do that.
So do we want a motion for, how many we're gonna allow?
Well, and good question. So it's an ordinance. We had the discussion, we had the hearing, and we said the number is to be determined. So do we have to go through the whole? Plug your ears for fun. Do we have to repost this thing, go through the whole public hearing? to put a number in the
That's right,
box?
than I do. I think it could be part of the resolution, right? A resolution?
No, you're gonna be amending your
The ordinance, because it's right at the beginning of the ordinance. It says the
Okay.
total, the maximum number shall be, and we put to be determined.
Right.
So, I mean, worst case, we just post it again and say, because,
It's-
yeah, you're right, the public has to be noticed, because if there's 12 people buying houses right now, this is their notice that they need to run down here and go, no, you need to make it 41.
But it's not a land use ordinance change, so
Right.
it's a pretty simple notification.
A little straight, it's right. So if we motion that it's 35, and then I guess this is just staff instructions, and come up with some sort of the application, if there's an application, and then there's a sheet that says, I acknowledge that I'm on a wait list, it's non-refundable, and it expires at the next round of expirations. If I don't get one, I start over. And if I get one, I've got that 30 days to take it, or it goes away and you don't start over, you don't get a refund. So if somebody next July says, right now it's not convenient, like, then you're out. We go to the next on the list, or we just move on. So if that makes sense. Is that a motion? Is that a motion?
Yeah, I would make a motion.
You got on
We
that?
put 35.
35 is the number with some sort of term sheet that it's non-refundable. They acknowledge that it's a wait list and it expires, basically fiscal year.
Yeah.
Right? Like August 1st.
Yeah, I'll second it then.
Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. Awesome. Okay, 7:30. As it, you guys want to take a look at the nuisance chapter, which is related.
Well, actually, the fees.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. So the fee for, this is specific to non-compliance. Not all the fees for nuisance, but I think if it's $1,000 to get the permit, if you're operating a short-term rental and we have evidence that you're doing it without a permit, I think your fine should be $1,000. I don't think, this is one, Joe talked about some, they should go up, like start cheap, but start not cheap, but
Start at 1,000.
start at 200 and then triple it or whatever. I think this should be $1,000. There should not be an incentive to not pull a permit and have it be cheaper to get fined once in a while than going through the process. So, to your point.
Every time?
Yes.
This is just one time?
No, it's every time. If it's a new renter, new weekend, it should be multiple.
But is that like per day, is it time a day or time a?
I think it should be per occurrence, but I'm
I was
open.
gonna say that per guest that you're talking about.
Per plus.
So what are we talking about?
No, I mean, if they're renting for a time period, like for the weekend, so if they rent it the next weekend, is it $1,000 for each rental time?
Yeah, if it's a new rental and a new customer, and we come back and go, now there's some new people there, that, new picture, new car, new plates, whatever, clearly this is a different renter, that's a new occurrence. In my mind.
Get up to $3,000 on a weekend.
Do we do it by the day, do we do it by the occurrence?
So the one I wrote in this sheet, I did it 2,500, so by occurrence,
Right.
with a cure period. Because I don't know legally, once using franchise law, you always have to have a cure period in there, but then that,
Well, I think if you describe the process and you fail, you're already past that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because right now, if we go to 35, there's 6 available. If you choose not to apply and pay for one, and then go ahead and rent anyway, there is no cure period. You're already past that.
you're done.
Now, it's $1,000 for the violation, and if there's a permit available, go apply for it or stop doing it. Turn it into a long-term rental or sell it or whatever you need to do.
You know, what I use is a 2.5 multiplier, so it's like $2,500 for the first occurrence. And then a second occurrence would be $6,200. Because it's one of the ones, that, like, people are bold to say, I don't care what they do, I'm gonna do it anyway.
Right.
We have to make something sting.
Making $695 a night. Yeah, I didn't want a $100 fine for somebody that makes $1,800
Right.
a weekend. It'd be
Because like-
cheaper just to pay the
Like
fine.
the house next to us, they do $1,000 a night,
Yeah.
so they would there'd be like one night, I have the other 285 nights, I'm good to go, I'll pay that all day long, cost of business.
Right.
And so we gotta make it.
But if it turns into every week, and the second week it's 2,500, and the
Start
next
doing
week
multiples
it's
of 2.5 or 2.5, yeah.
Yeah, but you can't tell me they're making $1,000 a night on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
If it's $1,000 an occurrence, that's, there's no way they're gonna.
Mine, the one next to us is
The night.
1,000. Yeah, but it's a huge property.
$1,000 a night
Yeah.
and goes up in the summer.
Big gated property with
Oh, really?
room for 20 cars.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Another one next to us.
He's the one that had live music, the day the high school graduation was, where they had a live band, 20 cars parked there, right?
Yeah.
Rented it for the weekend. It's, yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's.
Okay.
I don't know where people
Yeah.
come up with $3,000 for a weekend
Medium.
and a short-term rental.
But the
Got
thing
more
is,
money than I do.
there's gonna be another thing that curb that, because we put in how many people, it's like, that's what South, 14 people. I think some of our rules aren't gonna allow them to do the huge groups anymore.
Potentially.
Yeah.
We're starting to get the feedback from the county. They are actually looking at, they ask, how many nights is your typical rental? How many, they look at the beds and the bedrooms and the bathrooms, and they say, how many nights a week are you renting? How many did you rent last year? They're asking detailed questions. Then they're coming out eyeballing their septic system. They're pulling up the original permit inside, and then they're eyeballing. And then they're putting, this will continue to be fine for this. We're waiting to see if we get one back that says they go and rent 2 nights a week, 4 bathrooms,
Right.
or whatever it is. But so far, we haven't had any that came back, but we're waiting for a bunch of them. So
I think,
they are doing a detailed.
I think every time that there's a penalty, I think there should be additional charge on that penalty because you got prime example over here. I'll pay that. That's called custom,
Yeah. But if it's per occurrence, it's gonna catch up to you. Or if it was once a season, it'd be one thing, but
But one of the things we talked about was the first offense, first offense was $2,500 for not having a permit.
yeah.
Second offense is $6,250. Third offense is $15,000 and you're done. It's revoked. And so,
But what do
Yeah,
you
but these
revoke
people
if they
don't
don't
even
have a
have,
permit?
They don't have a permit.
Right.
well, then you're banned.
well, they're still gonna
From
do
ever
it.
getting a permit.
They're still gonna do it though.
You're banned from ever getting a permit.
Correct.
Yeah.
But they can continue doing it, and we can extrapolate this out, but then, like you talk about, a judge is gonna say $250,000 for lack
Well,
of.
the port tonight. Sounds like a nice place.
Or collections.
And then makes it really uncomfortable to rent.
Right.
Because half of the council was there, not having a legal meeting, just a couple of us, but.
So those fees will all go to collections if they don't get paid,
Correct.
which
Right.
eventually.
And lien the
be-
property.
Yeah,
Right,
so there will be costs.
correct. I mean, look at American Ave, you go to collections and destroy your credit, and so people protect that, right? That's one of the few things I think really has some teeth, more than the money. Because if someone's an investor too,
Yeah.
they know they need access to cash, and if you get dinged on your credit, that goes away quickly. So that may be the biggest thing, is we'd say that you're going to collections, pay or not, or if you don't pay.
Yeah.
But I think meaning we as Dune City have been walked over by a lot of people in the time.
Yeah.
I honestly think that, this first time, second time, third time, cost changes.
And
And it's something to be
it's-
seriously contemplated.
it's a sore spot with a lot of the public, the ones that live here and don't rent. They're like,
We're talking about
It's a
trying
pain
to
in my neck,
generate
and
funds
some-
for our
they're-
city. There we go.
you time to say that again?
We're trying to generate funds for things for here in our city.
Well, we
I mean,
have to
if
be
we have
careful
someone
that-
that's doing stuff like this and they have a complete disregard to.
Yeah. We're not doing it just for money, we're doing it to correct the behavior. It needs to
Correct.
cover-
Right, it should be zero. We should get zero.
Right, that's our goal, is that the work still
But-
well.
The reality is
Yeah,
There's gonna be some revenue,
right.
you can't.
And that's why our,
That's why we could increase code enforcement hours, we could, those simple things like that. More hours into the office staff for having to go through these different
answer the
things.
phone and deal with all that.
And deal with, talking to Lane County,
It's our-
doing this,
Our
researching
basic
that.
costs covered with the permit fees. Correct. So we weren't building an incentive that you had to write tickets. People always hear that. There's, the cops out of this, they all gotta write 50 tickets or they get laid off. we're not trying to set up an ordinance that the only way to make this work is we gotta write 27 tickets and get them to $6,000, right? Because we think we're covering our basic costs and get code enforcement and run it. So yeah, if everybody applies, it works, but if they don't, yeah, it's gotta stink, right? You can't say, oh, it's like $50, but I get $1,000 a night for summer.
There should not be, I'm sorry, it should not be the thing is, oh, well, I've got to spend money to make money.
Right, right.
Cause this would eliminate that. This is
Yeah.
too much of a thing. Well, and there's precedence, cause in Washington, when HOV lanes first went in,
Yeah.
the people would always run an HOV and like it was $100 or less than that, I think $75 if you got pinched. And so it was easier, miss your flight or run the HOV lane, people are in HOV lane all day.
Yep.
And so they
only
bragged
money.
about it on time, or, and then the legislator said, okay, so you wanna play games, now it's like
Like
$600 something,
yeah.
that's really high. And then that really stopped the use of HOV lane
Yeah.
violations, so it's kind of the same philosophy.
We had
here.
one that went the opposite. They went from 2 hours in the morning to 2 hours in the evening. Everybody thought that's fair during rush hour. They put it 24 hours a day through Las Vegas, in the middle of town, and it's like, so it had zero compliance. So Las Vegas, by ordinance, set the fines for $15 for violating the carpool lane. Highway patrol's like, we got better things to do.
Exactly.
Everybody, it's like you built a brand new lane and it doesn't get used. The highway's all plugged up with an empty lane.
Right.
Yeah. So 2/3 of it was in Las Vegas. They said, let's make 15 mil.
Yeah.
And then the councilman that liked that idea was elected lieutenant governor and did away with the whole thing at the DOT level.
Nice.
And it went back to 2 hours in the morning, and 2 hours in the evening, and everybody could fly. So yeah, it's about getting the behavior that.
Change behavior.
Yeah, so,
I have a logistics question. How do we frame occurrence?
right,
Like, frame occurrence, if we say it's a 2,500 with a multiplier for each additional occurrence.
right,
Assuming somebody's gonna complain and say, hey, there's
Yeah.
short-term rental activity. Somebody goes out there and validates that it's short-term rental activity. That's the first occurrence right there on the spot. You have people renting.
right.
And then somebody complains next week and somebody goes out there and the owner says, no, it's the same people. This is the same occurrence.
If I'm not mistaken, I mean, I know it's probably out of our reach, though, aren't they required? I mean, it's like when you go and rent a hotel room, you have to give them your plate number and whatnot. I mean, you're gonna have the same,
In theory, they could produce, right? They could say,
yeah, we
Here's
would
the registration,
require that person.
especially if they're going through a
Produce.
DRB
They're
or.
through a portal.
Yeah, they're using for everything's on, and it's gonna say, Sam Smith, he signed up for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and he's from Phoenix, Arizona.
Right.
Yeah, and then, it's so,
You can't change.
if you said, prove it, it's easy for them to
Yeah.
prove, right? I mean, because if they're lying, they're gonna be, oh, yeah, what's the receipt? It's like, don't give me a break, it's on, it's on, one of the.
It's on
rental
your
portals.
calendar.
Yeah, that you know, I mean, you have to have it set,
Yeah,
right?
there's no way around that.
Right.
Because they can't.
And they don't delete the data every week and say, oh, everybody last week, oh, it's all deleted. It's usually, it's probably years, right? The tax.
I mean,
purposes.
one of the easiest ways
Like
is
3 years.
you want to look at the reviews after the facts. It gives the period of stay.
Right.
You reviewed it. So it's a lot of ways.
5 stars.
That's how, the counties and the states are getting their, tax money.
Exactly. They keep track for the room tax too. And if you
Yeah.
cheat the state, they come after you.
As long as it's easy to enforce them, yeah.
I think,
I'm on board.
and I think part of the code enforcement is gonna be, you go out, you listen, you take a picture and you're gonna go, white van the first weekend, black Suburban, plates from a different state, the next weekend. Sure looks like a totally different occurrence. And then show me your rental data.
Yeah, Sam, when we're getting into several thousands of dollars,
Yeah.
you're gonna need real evidence.
Correct.
That this is a different occurrence.
Right. But part of that's up to them too, to prove it.
They have to, if the code enforcement was to ask, well, you need to prove that it's the same occurrence. Same
Right,
person.
they gotta be able to print
If they
out their
can-
rental agreement for 17 days.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
Right, they think it'll be blocked out by 10 people.
Because it wouldn't be the code enforcement going out there and taking the pictures of, oh,
100%. Yeah, that's
So, I mean,
you need, I mean, I just like watch other shows and, yeah, if we're gonna impose someone or put a fine on
Yeah.
someone, we have to go, here's photograph, here's the plate.
And
here's
we
the-
would have to, I mean, every, what's it called, accusation has to have an investigation.
Sure.
So I think.
And a lot of these will probably start with a neighbor who's already frustrated, so they'll know when a new family or whoever, whatever shows up. And so there's been a lot of, oh, you know, they put it on Facebook or they tell two neighbors, like, you gotta go fill the form out and give me, you know, time, date. You know, you need something, time and date stamped, and then you go, yes, I went right out the next day, I got pictures, yeah, I got corroborating evidence, right? And so you had a reason, somebody made a complaint, you had a reason to go, you took pictures, you said, yep, it's out of state play or whatever it is. Take some notes, listen, you know,
Right.
look
The code
around.
enforcement would have to have a log, I mean,
Right,
that would be
right.
part
It's all
of
about-
their job, it's the law.
Yeah, I've been starting like a wireframe of Apple format, because that's how I relax. It's really, it's weird. But it's, once I get it off my mind, if I'm thinking about it, then I'm staring at the ceiling, but if I write it,
Same thing.
then it's easier, but it's, because we're gonna have to, at some point, put not a job description, but like details of what this person's gonna do.
Oh, we got it.
We're gonna have to script it
I
out.
got a good one.
Yeah, it's gonna be tricky in some ways, or it could be. And then my other question is, so citizens are gonna be held to the same standard of, so noise and parking and.
So that's the nuisance, yeah,
Right.
so that's why the renting without a permit is specific to STRs. Everything else is universal, right? Noise ordinance, lighting, barking dogs, whatever it is. It's
So this
for-
compliance officer then would really be compliance for citizens.
Yeah.
Sure, it's.
Oh, yeah,
whole
for the
city.
whole community.
Yeah, it's the same standards, rules for everyone.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we would be in trouble if you said, oh, it's a short-term rental, that's $5,000, but if it's a resident, it's $50.
Right.
Or that's not gonna play out very well, yeah.
Because that's one of my big concerns lately is there's so many violations of probably so many things that we know
There's a
about.
couple of them
The
that.
riparian, cutting trees. Now, I guarantee you, I know some people that aren't getting permits and so there's just a lot. And I think it goes back to this whole perception of the council, the state's a dead duck. So who cares what they say? Because we're not gonna do it because they're not gonna hold us accountable. And so there's just a lot going on in the city that it's unfortunate if people aren't gonna come and get permits, but that's kind of the rule. Whatever, what they're gonna do, that's nothing. So
Yeah.
as long as we're holding everyone accountable to the same standards, other than the permit fee, obviously, because that doesn't exist for a citizen. But yeah, okay.
All right, so in 8B, we need a motion for, the first step, for this fine, for a first fine, a second fine, a third fine, or however we want to do that.
I don't think we're ready for,
Just for the non-permitted short-term rental,
okay.
not all the other nuisance stuff, but that one is a freestanding because it's only for those that.
But did we define per occurrence yet? Or define, I'm tired.
Did we define as per occurrence what the fee would be, or the fine would be? That was sure.
Right, or what even, I mean, because Chris asked, what's a per occurrence mean? Is it a rental? So if you rent to me today, that's one occurrence, then you rent.
And it's a week-long rental, that's one occurrence.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you rent to the next, so the per rental
Right,
is
so
an
we're-
occurrence or?
My opinion is, you don't want to beat up on the visitor.
Correct.
Right, because they didn't realize
Right.
this necessarily.
Now we're hurting our city because we give ourselves a bad.
And we look like a bunch of, exactly, they're like, I'll never go back to there, and it was terrible. So, yeah, so I don't want somebody saying, oh, shoot, we got caught, so you have to be gone by Monday, even though you got a 5-day rental.
Right.
Because I don't want you to find anything,
Right.
so,
So when the code enforcement officer goes out, talks to probably the visitors, that's who's gonna be there.
yeah,
So they have one you here, they say, I'm here for a week, okay, I'll be back next week, you
Right.
better not be here. Like,
Right.
and then the clock starts again.
and you take a look at the vehicles, the
Yeah.
license plates and that sort of thing, yeah.
So I would say occurrence is a rental period.
So,
Because there are some long-term rentals of short-term rentals, right?
Yes.
Get weeks at a time.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna play devil's advocate on that. So we have someone that goes in and rents for a week and then on the first night they get in trouble and the code enforcement goes out there and then they're like, okay, I already got fined, so I got 6 more days to do this.
oh, no, we're
Well,
talking.
that's only for not having a permit. Noise and all that could be every night, come quiet hours. You can be cited every night, the other stuff. Yeah, so that's why I said this one's just for
Oh,
non.
We have to flip the pendulum to, those are actual occurrences.
Right.
Yeah, that's like,
Look at a smaller time frame.
Right, exactly.
okay, I think
If I
I
have
sure.
someone in my rental for 3 weeks, which I do often,
Mhm.
that's one occurrence.
Right, correct.
And my gut says anybody that does a 3-week rental probably doesn't have a 3-week long live band party. Those are probably
You
the,
just have people that just
are noisy.
don't care.
Yeah.
You know, what is our one biggest complaint during the season with the ATVs?
In the street.
In the streets, running, you know, speeding up and down, the parties at night, you know,
Yeah.
riding their quads at, you know, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Those are all issues that we have to think about.
Yeah. I guess is that primarily a Ford Way thing, or because I'm not seeing that anywhere else.
The
I
one,
think it's isolated.
It happens in Westlake a lot.
I mean, they're all over, but yeah, the one house on Ford Way, they just, it depends on who gets it.
So I'm-
And they'll
I've
run
never
up and
seen
down.
a four-wheeler in the street.
Yeah, I have never, I mean, I have seen locals drive their side by sides
I've seen a couple of dirt bikes.
down to
I
have.
don't see any, down there's one local on our street that takes their, well, two, sorry, that will take their things down to the lake front, but there are, when that house on Ford Way is rented,
Yeah.
there are people that bring their quads, because Ford Way doesn't stop at 101. We have access, even though there's a metal gate there on the other side, we have access and the right to go there. So they
So
just
they
take it and they just go right across.
Yeah,
You go, where's that? Go to the dunes.
yeah,
So. It's what's gonna happen.
but I guess I've heard this before, and it's like, I'm not seeing it, so it must be, you know,
I think
primarily.
I think there's a couple of spots.
there's a couple of spots that things happen, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we even had to complain on Cloud 9 a couple of times.
Where did they go? Yeah, I say that's long.
What's up there?
No, I mean, but they have, just, I think it's just who the clientele is that's renting that location. Are they coming with quads or are they not coming with quads? Not everybody packs up and goes to the dunes RV area to unload.
yeah,
And it's not necessarily RVs. We've had a gentleman that's been going down to the parking lot area, driving real fast down Pacific, not stopping at the stop sign, doing donuts in the parking lot in front of our home and heading back out, barely missing the school bus that parks at the corner. So
So
we've taken pictures and sent it to the sheriff and everything, and they said, well, we're not gonna sit there and watch for him.
oh, no.
So,
yeah, it's not a priority for them.
No,
Yeah, just, and I get that because they don't have the funds or the resources to,
but we got his license plate and everything. All they had to do was, you know, we did show them the marks, we showed them what, you know, come and go, did the license plate number, everything, they could have written.
yeah,
everything.
there's always something here. And another issue that we have on Ford Way is we have these two. When you come off 101, you have these two cutout areas. And then you have the mailboxes and then you have Lake Drive. Well, people will commonly park in those areas. You call the sheriff's department and says, well, there's not a no parking zone, or sign there. We can't do anything about it. So I think it's the rare occurrence that things happen, but they're still not going to.
No.
Do anything about it. They have better things to do,
yeah.
more important things to do.
Well, they said they'd come out and somebody got hurt. And the kids at the school bus are the ones we're worried about.
Speeders and all that. Crazy.
When you wanna drive around with 50 kids on your bus or anything else?
Let's go get the spot.
You signed up,
We
you
have
signed
a
up for the
shortage of
job.
bus drivers. It's pretty brave to drive that size of a vehicle with a bunch of kids behind you.
Yep.
So,
To make a motion for this one, we'd have to say the fee and define what per occurrence is.
do you have enough notes on all that, or do you want it in the motion? I like
Basically
that.
rental period.
Rental period, right, we could say per occurrence equals rental period, verifiable rental period, right? So this is, if you're advertising this somewhere, that's easily done, right? You're gonna be able to produce, yes, this is the name, and it went from X to Y, you know, on the calendar.
Yep.
This is to their advantage at that point to share, because it limits exposure, right? If the person has 5-day rental, then you can only be fined once for that thing in that 5 days.
Right, it does diffuse the pain a little bit, but they need incentivizes for longer rentals, which is an event.
Right. And then part two is, what's the first offense? 1,000, 2,500, 1,500 would make it exactly the same as the application and the permit. So one could argue that, you know, there's no advantage to not getting a permit, but we haven't gone crazy, right? We didn't make $20,000 or $5,000 worth. But when you advertise it that way, it's like, wow, one single occurrence and you're already caught up. You may as well, especially if 6 permits are available. But I agree with you. It needs to like double. The second one,
Once it escalates, I choose a multiplier, so 1,500, 2,250, then 3,375. That's just using like 5 multiplier.
okay?
And I think that's a pretty good escalation, and that's real money, if it's per occurrence.
Yeah.
Unless you're that 1,000, those are rare, 1,000,
You're leaving
most are
them
gonna be
I mean,
200 to 300 a night.
Yeah.
So that would take your whole profit and then some, so that would still sting.
Right, there's, yeah.
But that may be
there'd
grossly like,
absolutely no reason to do it.
right,
And it would hold up, you would think, if someone appeals to court, you go, the application and the permit's $1,500, so we set it $1,500. You can't skirt that.
Right.
But if they keep doing it without going through the permitting process, then yeah, it went up 1.5 times, 1.5 times.
Right.
That's not outrageous.
Right. Right.
I like that.
So it's like a win-win, it's in,
1,500, 2,250, 37,
yeah, 3375.
33.75. Does it continue to go up? Or every occurrence at that point, 33.75, and after 3, we wouldn't even accept your application?
Well, this is a,
Because you're.
I think that's, yeah, it's like a termination, and I wasn't thinking that they would even terminate. because
Right. So if we had 3, for lack of a better term, successful citations,
Right.
right? Because some of these are gonna come back away, no, it's a big misunderstanding, it was the same guy, I have proof, okay, you know. But after 3, you can't even apply for a permit next year.
But the fine.
But they're not going to anyways. They're just gonna continue to do it.
Not at $3,300 of rental. I don't think anybody's making that much money out of short-term rental
Never
per
say never.
occurrence.
Well, that's what I said. It would just incentivize them to rent longer to diffuse the pain of that.
But at this point, some of these guys gotta rent for 10 days just to break even.
Right, so I think it would still be difficult.
It would,
And
that's a big nut.
And they can rent longer, but it's obviously the consumer's gonna dictate, I mean, they're
Right.
quick hitters, 2 to 3
And
day
if people are
average
doing it
rentals. and-
3-week rental, you're probably not getting it.
Right.
$6.99 a night.
No,
That's the
because
weekend.
most of them just get it down
Yeah.
too, but.
Yeah.
It's good, I think this would be good.
Okay.
And it seems, shows like we're being fair too, where it's not like 30,000 on your 30.
Yeah, no, we're the kindest council in the whole city.
No, city or one.
The entire jurisdiction.
Um,
So, and that's by resolution, right? This is the fine that goes with the short-term rental program. Okay, and then part B is, if we're good on all that, is that a motion?
Yeah,
We
do
need,
you want
that was
me
a motion, right?
to, do you want to try to summarize that, or do you have the?
I have the notes, 1,500, 2,250, 3,375. After the third one, no form permit optional.
But the finding continues.
Yes,
Yes, so it stays at that 3rd level for everyone that's,
right.
deemed appropriate. You know, you get a complaint, you do the investigation.
Right. So it's
So at some point, you're gonna be on the route. If you have a code enforcement person driving around every weekend or whatever, it's like, I gotta go check this one first.
right.
If they're a routine violator.
And occurrence is defined as a verifiable rental period.
Yes.
I'll make a motion,
Okay,
with all of that.
I need a second. All right? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? You make a noise?
Nope, sure didn't. Just like the other one. I still don't like short-term rentals, so I don't know which way, I mean. If you vote, it's kind of against what I believe. If I say no, then I'm still gonna get outvoted, so.
Well, if you say no, it means you don't want to fine them.
No, I mean, there has to be a fee, but I mean, I'm just not for short-term rentals.
Well, you made that clear. Would you propose a different fine or a
No,
different structure?
I mean,
Okay. So final answer?
I guess for.
4?
Still
Unanimous.
Still
You know, things stink.
Still gotta control them because you're never gonna get rid of them.
Right, right. And this is a step in, the numbers down. And we'll see how it goes, right? If we continue to get complaints and complaints and complaints, I mean, the city, we decided after all this, Luba has never taken on a short-term rental. It's not a land use right. If we took away their right to have a single-family home used as a single-family home for a long-term rental or owner-occupied, we have a problem. But we asked Ross, we asked League of Cities, I went to the Luba website, there's not a single case, there's not a single opinion. Luba has not taken one of these on, so we've decided, and Ross goes, it's not a property right, it's a special use permit, you should be safe. So we were nervous when we started. We've decided that we could ban this outright if we continue to get complaints. So if all these measures don't cut it, the next renewal period, you go, you know what, we gave up, we're not gonna do it anymore because there's just too many complaints and it's valuable to our citizens to be a small town. Well, a lot of people talk about, the tax advantages. The city doesn't make a whole lot about it. I mean, we have a couple of restaurants and, there's some amenities, that's where they end up, but it's not driving our economy. When you look at our survey, retirement checks are driving our economy. I mean, we only got one, none of your business. Where's your income? And
Right.
like none of your business. Everybody else is like, I'm retired, I get this, I get that, I work part-time. I mean, we got a pretty solid feedback. It's a very small number of people. Half of them are sitting right here, right now, have a business here. And so it's a cottage. They're all driving to Eugene, or not to Eugene, they're driving to Florence to eat 2/3 of the time. Right. And to get gas and all that. So anyway.
And the thing is bottom line is, if you can't control it, then you just ban it.
Exactly.
I mean,
That's my point. That's the advantage of being an incorporated city. You got home rule, right? If you're unincorporated, Lane County goes, yeah, we don't have a cap. Or if they said the cap's 750 based on our population, 500 of them could be on the coast. I don't know about you, but going to Eugene is not nearly as glamorous.
But this is all an attempt to compromise.
Yeah.
But
Right.
if the compromise doesn't work, the next step.
To answer the complaints, to allow it where it works, but if you can't make it work, then yeah,
It's like a privilege to be able to.
it is.
do a
It's
short-term
privilege
rental.
license, right? It's a special use permit, yeah.
Um,
So that was all in favor. And,
and so people are using rental companies.
Yeah.
They have to have a valid business license in this city, correct? And are we
the
managing
rental company. Yeah,
So like Vacasa, one of them.
yeah, they're on fire, right?
But there's several.
Yeah.
Operating in this city and we have them all on file, or at least the ones we know of. There should be a few.
They all got notices too about the renewal.
Most of those people actually filled in the applications for their clients. So
Right.
yes,
But that's a good question then is, you got VRBO and Airbnb that are national.
Yep.
Do they have a business license here?
And they don't have to, right? Do they have to? Doesn't our ordinance say?
They're
you can do
operating a business in this town, they should.
and that's a good question.
That they probably.
I mean, it's the same thing when you have,
Yeah,
when you have a contractor coming out and doing contracting work, AKA our coast. They should have to be pulling a business license.
We've already
It's
decided
already-
contractors have been.
You know,
Contractors do.
contractors have to, so there would be labeled a contractor of some sort too.
But is it
Everybody has
the,
business.
the person who's running the short-term rental that's using,
Yeah.
Airbnb,
They're
right?
needing a
So it's-
management service. The
Yeah.
management service doesn't own that Airbnb.
Right,
No, but the management company should have or
But they are receiving funds for the rental of that Airbnb, so does that constitute a business transaction?
within Dune City rights, yeah.
but again, wouldn't that be the property owner, because that's, yeah, I don't know, it's confusing.
Right. Well,
We're going
or
after
is the property owner covered when the property owner gets the permit and does all that? They're covered, but, who was our guy that was here from Big Casa?
Todd Swift,
And Todd, they have an office in Florence,
yes,
right? So they probably are gonna say.
No, he's from Newport.
yeah, but there is an
Yeah,
office.
There is an
That's-
office
you
here.
have-
They don't answer, they don't do anything.
She was in Florence.
Right, we have a young lady, I don't remember her name,
Yeah.
but she comes in, yes.
That's what always happens. They go, oh yeah, we have business like, we're in Florence. And so their address is in Florence, so they. put-
But I know that
don't need
Casa-
anything here, but-
Has a license.
Okay, and how much is it to get a business license for that?
$85.
Okay, for a year.
Yes,
But that would imply, in my opinion, that every national company that has presence in here, has a business license with us. Like, does Starlink have a business license in here? If more than 3 people have Starlink internet? They're using that service. And I'm saying, like, it's really hard to start splitting hairs
All right.
when you're just using that service.
Like Amazon doesn't have a business license with Dune City, but I get stuff on Amazon all the time.
You can check with Pam.
And sometimes it's a guy on Honda that
That's very
drops
good.
off and launches and charges them. Sometimes GPS, I don't know.
It's a service provider. Right.
One of them said, "Be here at 9 o'clock tonight."
You might know, she's coming up to me for you.
At noon, it said, never mind, I'm gonna be here Friday. After the, I think it's coming. So,
I was gonna say,
it hasn't got to him yet.
if they're late, they try to.
Yeah,
I don't think we're gonna get much out of that.
okay. No.
Not gonna mean to Airbnb down.
Well,
They're first in the list, we're gonna have to write it.
if we're getting $1,500 for each of the rentals going forward, you know, from a revenue perspective, it's not a huge deal, but
No, I get the intent of if you were a property owner with multiple Airbnb.
for a business
You're a
that has the headquarters and the, you know,
Yes,
a structure here, it's like, you need to hang a license here because you are physically in Dune City.
right, if you're just a service provider, it's gonna be real tough to go after.
Yeah. And a lot of that stuff, like Starlink, is probably regulated by the PUC. And the state says if you have this, you can operate in, you know, until they need infrastructure on the ground, like the power company, they pay us a fee and they have access to the right of way. But Starlink, they don't, they're all in the space. They don't need anything from the city. Right, it goes right to the homeowner, so, anyway. All right, it's 8:07. Does anybody want to go through chapter 91, or do you want to take it home? Well, this looks exciting.
I've been up since 3.
Yeah, no, Susan's reading ahead.
This is
Oh,
pretty
you're reading.
what's called.
No, we got it in.
Right, you gotta cut it.
I think you've changed it. So it's not long yet, and I think there's a lot of stuff that needs some tuning, right? There's one paragraph about noise, which we've had a lot of discussion, because I think it starts too early. And it just says audible, period. We need a measurable number that's considered a nuisance. There's lots of examples out there in ordinances. It's usually 60 or so dB
Lake
Like-
County has an,
at 100 feet from the property line or something. You can't just say it's audible. If you got somebody with a sensitive ear, you know, stop breathing so loud over there.
Well, these are different,
I know.
do like
Now
they
you got water
can,
front,
be
you got
different
trees.
in Westlake than if they are when you have 1 acre lots,
Right,
very different.
right,
And when we're open right by the lake, they'll travel further.
yeah.
needs to be over a certain decibel for a certain amount of time.
Yep. And we had a number of comments in the survey about lighting and enforcing the lighting ordinance. We don't have a lighting ordinance. So is that something that we need? I drive around, look around, I don't think we have a huge problem, but, this would be the time to bring it up, like shield lighting so it doesn't leave the property. I mean, we could start real simple, or we could go, it's gotta be this color frequency because the dark skies people recommend because it doesn't bother the wildlife. You know, that you can get really specific with like if you retrofit a lamp, it has to be a LED with this color.
When we built, we were told to save the night sky.
I think you were just told though, it does, we can't find it.
And so
Okay, good.
instead of going out, the lights go up on either side. So if there's a light going up and a light going down, it does not go out.
Okay.
So it doesn't go off your property.
Right. And that's good rule of thumb, right? It should be, if it's meant to light up your front door, it shouldn't light up the neighbors.
It's very, very for security reasons.
We have no time here, basically.
Yeah, yeah, you know, we know, I can't up with people on the lake. Jesus, the lady, it was clear across the lake
Yeah.
from
I
here.
think during the survey, they said,
And
LED lamps, LED specifically came up like 3 times.
my,
Porch lights, so.
yeah.
Okay.
So I have since put up no trespassing signs. I've had people come down my driveway. One was, had a German Shepherd in tow. And I told him to stop and he wouldn't. I said, "Who are you?" And he wouldn't say anything and he kept coming and he kept coming and he kept coming. There's nobody around. And he could have kicked my butt, you know, he's 20-something.
So you just walking the dog?
Who knows?
So,
I don't care what he's doing, he's trespassing.
Yeah.
That I do know. But there's a big difference between that and, anyway, you gotta be posted, no
Yeah.
trespassing. So I posted my property, looks like crap. But you, by law, you have to.
Right.
To protect yourself.
Right.
In a problem with a trespasser. So the lady that complained about my light, proceeded to just drive onto my property, ignored all the signs, broad daylight. And she rang the doorbell, and then I got dogs going bananas inside, and I wasn't gonna open the door, funny I did. And I got her all calmed down, everything is fine, but I finally figured it out. She had me looking across the lake and, wait a minute, I'll call you on myself. Okay, I'm flipping the light switch. Does this bother you? No, Lord Almighty, and if they can see the light, it's obtrusion.
For some folks, right?
Oh, it is, not for just some, for a lot. We had a person on the plan commission that, is dead set against lights. And it got down to how many lumens.
Yeah.
Will a candle illuminate if you hold up a piece of paper 12 inches away from that candle? Can you see the light on that piece of paper? Lord Almighty, and you know, I got that shut down, or at least helped to get that shut down.
I don't want to.
In this
It's too hard to do.
Boy, and to me, there's a difference between, yeah, sure, bright light shining right in your face, in your eyes, is one thing, but if you can straight up, straight down is just really poor, management as far as crime.
I don't think so. It lights up the whole area. It's just like.
Well,
Yeah,
I haven't seen it, I don't know.
But anyway,
I've got a lot of
But that's-
it's not in the
discussion
nuisance,
later.
it's not in the nuisance code, so I haven't mentioned
Light,
something like.
yeah,
Well, it
It
is.
is?
It just-
Okay.
Yeah, somebody.
I must have missed it, I was just looking through it before the meeting, but,
lights in there.
okay, so we'll have that discussion at a future meeting, so, is there anything else anybody wants to cover before we adjourn? Rich?
Dam is completely operational, has all its motors. It has been opened several times. People seem to think that it's not been open, and it has been open.
Yeah.
It has been open.
Their thoughts on dirt. It's open.
It's been, a little bit interesting. There's somebody here in the area that's calling, the water master every time they turn around and complaining. It's like, we're within the standards as far as ways operating it. It's actually looking really good.
Good.
But, then, we had a, meeting out there with the road, Dyer Way. I don't know if you got contacted by the county at all yet.
Nope.
They were supposed to have gotten a hold of Wyland to, have Dune City authorize a permit for a driveway. And, I questioned him, the Lane County individual. I said, well, how does Dune City authorize a permit for a Lane County road? Well, he said, that's just the way it's gonna be. Basically, is the way it is. I said, okay. I said, we've already discussed that we would give them the permit anyway, because they've already paid for it. And you guys weren't willing to do anything, and we were just gonna give them the driveway permit anyway, so whatever. I said, just call. I said, we'll get it taken care of. And so that's basically where that's been left. And, they're well aware that they need to get something done because the rains are gonna basically plug that culvert up and flood that out.
Yeah.
And actually probably cause more damage
Right.
to a road or a culvert that's already messed up to start with,
Right.
so. They should be getting a hold of her and getting things done, and, you know, I told them that I would bring it up at the, council meeting. Ryan Seneca was there.
Okay.
And, so the property owners were good with the fact that the county said that they would move the guardrail, put the driveway in, basically put in the approach, whatever, Dune City's requirements are as far as the approach, whether it's 6 feet, 8 feet or whatever, by the width of whatever it's gonna be. And, they would take out the culvert at their expense. I think there was some, talk of litigation, and so the county's like, well, we're gonna lose this one, so we're just gonna take care of it. I think is kind of the way I took it, but, so I think there's, works in progress to get this solved.
Okay.
But it's not happening probably quite as fast as it should. I told Lila the other day when I saw her that to expect that, but that's all I got.
Anything, Chris?
No.
Tom? Anything else, Susan? Melissa?
Nope.
Joe? Nope. Okay. And I will be out of town next council meeting. Council President Snow will be in charge. So I need a motion to adjourn.
So,
Second. All right. All those in favor? Adjourn at 8:16 PM.